Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 1 of our story. If you like this what if story and want to see part 2, let me know in the comments below. Before we start, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Also, check the description for more great content and my playlist. This story was posted by 𝐒𝐮𝐬 on Wattpad. Now let's start. In a dense forest, a group of 22 children, no older than 7, surrounded a boy with green curly hair. This boy was Izuku Yagi, who had been diagnosed as quirkless at the age of 4. His stepsister, Izumi Yagi, along with his former friends, had devised a plan to use their quirks on him in an attempt to discourage his dreams of becoming a hero. However, they had lost sight of their original intentions. Now, at 7 years old, Izuku lay unconscious, suffering from pain and blood loss. Izumi expressed her frustration, wishing they were not related. Tsuyu coldly stated that he deserved to die, while Katsuki cruelly suggested that Izuku could gain a quirk by praying for one in his next life and jumping off a rooftop. They left Izuku unconscious, unaware that he had heard every word. Overwhelmed by their harshness, Izuku began to cry uncontrollably, questioning why this was happening to him. Meanwhile, a woman with green hair, dressed in a tight black suit and a mechanical suit, landed nearby. Maya reported to Oromiura-sensei that the children had used a cloaking device to hide their presence, making them undetectable. A voice over the intercom, belonging to a woman with long black hair, instructed Maya to regroup and return to base. However, Maya's scanner detected a weak heartbeat, prompting her to investigate further. Upon arriving at the location, Maya was horrified to find Izuku's bruised and battered body. She struggled to contain her nausea at the sight of such a young boy in such a state. She called out to her sensei, who confirmed the grim reality. Maya collected a blood sample from Izuku and flew him to the hospital. On the way, the results of the blood test came in. Maya informed her sensei that Izuku was related to Inko Yagi and Hisashi Midoriya. Shifuyu, her sensei, reached out to Hisashi, who quickly recognized his son upon seeing Izuku's image. Hisashi revealed that 7 years ago he had been with Inko Shimura, but she had cheated on him with Toshinori Yagi while 𝐼𝐼𝐬𝐷 with Izuku. She had used the Hero Commission's influence to keep Hisashi away from his son, but now he was determined to make Inko pay for her actions. When Maya arrived at the hospital, Izuku was in a coma. Hisashi and Shifuyu rushed to his side, with Hisashi barely able to contain his anger. He vowed that Inko would pay for what she had done. A nurse entered the room, informing them that while Izuku was stable he would remain in a coma for a week and would need to have his right arm amputated due to infection. Hisashi contacted Nizu to explain the situation, and they awaited the arrival of 𝐼𝐻𝐻𝐸, who was equally furious. Izuku had seen him as a father figure and believed in his potential to become a hero despite being quirkless. At the Yagi household, Inko was cooking while Toshinori celebrated his daughter's birthday. The atmosphere was festive, but Tuya, Tensei, Fuyumi, and Natsuo noticed Izuku's absence. Before they could voice their concerns, there was a knock at the door. Inko opened it to find Hisashi, visibly angry. Before she could react, he punched her, causing her to fall to the ground with a bleeding nose. The celebration halted as everyone turned to witness the scene. Enji questioned Hisashi's presence, while 𝐼𝐻𝐻𝐸 entered, accompanied by Nizu. They announced their intention to hold Inko, Toshinori, Izumi, and her friends accountable for their actions against Izuku. 𝐻𝐻𝐸 used his quirk to restrain Toshinori, declaring that they would pay for what they had done. An elderly woman with blonde hair entered, demanding that 𝐻𝐻𝐸 release Toshinori. After a brief struggle, 𝐻𝐻𝐸 complied. The woman insisted that Hisashi return Izuku to them and stay away. Hisashi firmly stated that Izuku was his son, and he would not abandon him. The woman threatened to shut down Hisashi's company, but Shifuyu intervened, asserting her authority and stating that Hisashi had immunity due to their past collaboration. Hisashi declared his intention to sue Inko and Toshinori for the pain they had caused Izuku. Toshinori protested, but Hisashi was resolute. Inko pleaded for a chance to be a mother to Izuku, but Hisashi refused, reminding her of the suffering she had inflicted on their son. Tenya demanded that Hisashi step away and return Izuku, threatening arrest. Hisashi challenged him, confident in the evidence he had gathered. He displayed Izuku's memories to the group, revealing the truth of the situation. In the ensuing chaos, emotions ran high as family members clashed. Hisashi announced that the court date was set for 2 weeks later, vowing to ensure they faced justice for their actions. Izumi attempted to defend her intentions, but Hisashi reminded her that their plan had cost Izuku his arm. As the adults exchanged glances filled with anger and resentment, 𝐒𝐮𝐬 struggled to maintain his composure, while Rei comforted him. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 lamented that Izuku had helped him mend his relationship with Tuya, yet he felt powerless to help Izuku in return. Hisashi reassured him, acknowledging that he had seen Izuku's memories and recognized 𝐒𝐮𝐬's support. Rei promised to cover Izuku's medical expenses, and the other adults joined in, expressing their willingness to help. Hisashi thanked them before leaving with Shifuyu. A week later, Izuku slowly opened his eyes, only to close them again due to the brightness of the lights. He questioned where he was, and Shifuyu introduced herself, explaining that he was in the hospital and that his name was Izuku Midoriya. She assured him that his father would explain everything soon. Just then, a man with green eyes and curly hair entered the room. Hisashi greeted his son, revealing that Inko had not informed him of the truth, that Toshinori was his real father. Hisashi placed a helmet on Izuku's head and donned one himself. Izuku recalled the painful memories of witnessing Inko's betrayal with Toshinori while she was 𝐼𝐼𝐺𝐸 with him, and how the Hero Commission had prevented Hisashi from taking him away. Overwhelmed with emotion, Izuku broke down in tears and embraced Hisashi tightly. Hisashi encouraged him to let it all out, and Izuku cried in his father's embrace for what felt like an eternity. Eventually, the doctors arrived. They informed Hisashi that Izuku was free to leave the hospital having recovered, but they had to amputate his right arm due to an infection. Izuku hung his head in sorrow at the loss. The doctor mentioned the option of a prosthetic arm, which Izuku accepted. Hisashi brought Izuku home, where Izuku asked if this was his father's house. Hisashi corrected him, stating it was their house. They entered, and Izuku chose his room. Hisashi presented him with a gaming console, unsure if Izuku played games, to which Izuku gratefully responded with a smile. Hisashi then excused himself to use the bathroom, but soon after, he was seized by a violent cough. He covered his mouth with a tissue, noticing BLD on it, and muttered to himself about the recurrence of this issue. After taking some painkillers, he went to check on Izuku, urging him to rest because he cared deeply for him. Izuku agreed, but expressed that his dream of becoming a hero was over. Instead, he wished to be like Hisashi when he grew up. Hisashi reassured him, promising to win the upcoming court case regarding Izuku's custody and supporting his dreams. As night fell, Hisashi went downstairs to find Shifuyu and Maya. They expressed concern about Hisashi's coughing fits, and he revealed that he only had 5 years left to live, asking them not to share this with Izuku. He wanted his son to live without worry and requested they look after him when the time came. A week later, Hisashi and Izuku attended the custody hearing with Hisashi's lawyer. They sat together as Toshinori, Inko, Izumi, and her friends entered the courtroom. Izumi and her friends felt guilt and regret upon seeing Izuku without his right arm. Fuyumi approached and hugged him, to which Izuku reassured her that it wasn't her fault. The judge entered, and everyone rose before being seated again. The judge announced the purpose of the hearing, and both lawyers began presenting their cases. Hisashi's lawyer stated that there was evidence of Inko's neglect and abuse towards Izuku. Inko's lawyer objected, questioning Hisashi's credibility since he had abandoned Izuku before his 𝐼𝐼𝐺𝐸. Hisashi requested permission to speak, and the judge granted it. He explained that he had not abandoned Izuku, rather, Inko had cheated on him while 𝐼𝐼𝐺𝐸, and the Hero Commission had prevented him from taking Izuku away. He presented evidence of the betrayal. The lawyer called Shota Aizawa to testify. Shota admitted he had been unaware of the situation but acknowledged that he would investigate further. The opposing lawyer questioned Shota about bullying Izuku for being quirkless, to which Shota affirmed that it was indeed possible, as he himself was quirkless. The judge thanked Shota, who returned to his seat. The opposing lawyer then called Izumi to testify. She admitted to bullying Izuku, explaining that fear for his safety had driven her actions, but she had lost sight of that reason and felt remorseful. Inko then spoke, acknowledging her shortcomings as a mother and pleading for a chance to make amends. Izuku, however, interjected, asking how she could possibly make things right, questioning if she could turn back time or restore his lost arm. His words brought Inko to tears. The judge made a ruling, granting custody of Izuku to Hisashi and prohibiting the Yagis from approaching the Midoriyas. Izuku requested that the children who had bullied him be blacklisted from all hero schools, except UA, believing they deserved a chance to learn from their mistakes under the guidance of 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐬. After the hearing, Inko and Toshinori left in tears, while Izuku and Hisashi bid farewell to supportive family members and friends. Hisashi took Izuku to his company to help him choose a new robotic arm. 5 years passed since Hisashi won the custody case. He concealed his coughing fits from Izuku, who was now 12 years old and had received a new robotic arm to accommodate his growth. Izuku was enjoying video games with his best friend Ichika Orimura at their friend Dan Gotanda's house. Although he felt sad about Hookie leaving for another school, he was happy to have met Rin, a new friend from China. Inko and Toshinori continued their hero work, but internally, they were struggling. They attempted to regain Izuku's trust, but Hisashi, Shifuyu, and Maya consistently outmaneuvered them. The Hero Commission also tried to intervene, but Shifuyu made it clear that they should not provoke her. Meanwhile, Izumi and her friends reflected on their past actions, expressing regret for hurting Izuku and wishing to support him in his dreams of becoming a hero. They were determined to help him succeed, each vying for a place in his heart. Katsumi declared that 𝐼𝐼𝐻 would be her husband, prompting a lively argument among the girls. Meanwhile, Tuya and Tensei were recording the commotion to share with Izuku. Izuku was focused on training his aim with his upgraded green and black cannon, a modification made by Hisashi, who was aware of the limited time he had left. As Izuku fired charged shots at the targets, Hisashi was in the bathroom, struggling with a cough. He knew he had little time remaining and took some painkillers before heading to Izuku. Hisashi encouraged Izuku to get ready for a trip to the amusement park, and Izuku eagerly agreed. After changing his clothes, they set off for a day of fun. They enjoyed the bumper cars, raced go-karts, and had a blast in the kayaks. Despite the pain he felt inside, Hisashi masked his discomfort, wanting nothing more than to see Izuku happy. They bought snacks, and Izuku proudly showed off as he rode a pony named Applejack. Hisashi felt a mix of pride and sadness, knowing he would soon leave Izuku alone. As night fell, they returned home. Izuku expressed his gratitude, saying it was the best day ever. Hisashi, however, collapsed on the floor, and Izuku rushed to call for help. An ambulance quickly arrived, taking both Hisashi and Izuku to the hospital. While waiting in the halls, Ichika, Shifuyu, and Maya arrived, concerned for Izuku. Izuku explained that his father had collapsed, and Maya offered him comfort. After Izuku calmed down, a doctor approached them with grave news about Hisashi's condition. Shifuyu felt it was time to reveal the truth to Izuku about his father's illness, which was incurable. Hisashi had only a few years left to live after saving Izuku. Izuku was shocked and hurt that he had not been told sooner. The doctor allowed him to see Hisashi in his final moments. Izuku entered the room to find his father on the hospital bed, wearing a mask. Hisashi, weak but determined, urged Izuku to be strong and reassured him of his love. As Izuku cried, Hisashi's hand fell away, and the heart monitor flatlined. Doctors rushed in, but their efforts were in vain. They covered Hisashi with a white blanket, leaving Izuku to mourn deeply over his father's lifeless body. Shifuyu, Ichika, and Maya entered, realizing the tragedy that had unfolded. They took Izuku home, but he felt the weight of his sorrow alone. Once inside his house, Izuku expressed his longing to handle things on his own. He retreated to his room, collapsing on the floor, surrounded by memories of happier times with Hisashi. The upcoming funeral loomed over him, a duty he felt he had to fulfill for his father's sake. At the funeral, Fuyumi embraced Izuku, offering her condolences. Shota and Shifuyu discussed the absence of certain individuals who were kept away intentionally. Tuya reassured Izuku that he was more important than work, having accepted his own path away from heroism due to his quirk. As the service began, friends and family shared their memories of Hisashi. Tuya spoke of the impact Hisashi had on his life and how he would support Izuku moving forward. Nizu reflected on their bond and Hisashi's contributions to UA. When it was Izuku's turn, he struggled to articulate his pain, sharing the trauma of losing his father and the challenges he faced growing up. Overwhelmed, he ran from the funeral in tears. After the burial, with the tombstone marking Hisashi's resting place, friends began to leave. Izuku sat alone in his house, consumed by grief. Ichika, Rin, and others tried to reach out, but he remained locked away, unable to face the world. Days passed, and the silence in his home was palpable. Shifuyu and Maya stood outside, calling for Izuku, but there was no response. Shifuyu threatened to break down the door, desperate to reach her friend in his time of need. Shifuyu kicked the door open and stepped inside the house. There, she found Izuku slumped on the couch, unconscious. Maya quickly grabbed him, and they rushed to the hospital. Once at the hospital, the doctor assured them that Izuku would be fine. He was simply dehydrated and hungry. Shifuyu and Maya realized that Izuku hadn't eaten or drunk anything since the funeral. They entered the room where Izuku sat on the hospital bed. Maya expressed her concern for him, asking if he was all right. Izuku responded that he was fine, but when Maya pressed him on why he hadn't eaten or drunk anything, he replied that it didn't matter since nobody would care if he died. Shifuyu, feeling sorry for him, apologized, but Izuku was confused about what she was apologizing for. In a moment of frustration, Shifuyu slapped Izuku, telling him it was for being foolish. She reminded him that his father, Hisashi, would have wanted him to live a happy life and questioned what his father would think if he saw him like this. Izuku lowered his head, understanding that his father wouldn't want him to feel this way. Determined to change, Izuku got up and returned home, where he cleaned everything up. 2 years later, Izuku had become the CEO of Midoriya Industries. Rin had to move due to issues with her parents, and Izuku upgraded his cannon, adding more weapons and enhancing its capabilities. He also trained with his 𝐼𝐻𝗟𝗘, since he received his robotic arm at 7, encouraged by his father who told him he could use an 𝐼𝐻, a technology typically reserved for girls. Now, both he and Ichika were set to attend the 𝐼𝐻 Academy. Meanwhile, Class 1A had completed elementary school and were preparing to enter UA to become heroes. On Christmas morning, Izuku woke up and headed to the living room where a Christmas tree stood. Upon entering, he noticed Laura, who invited him to unpack his gift. With a smirk, Izuku picked Laura up in a bridal style and they headed to the bedroom, sharing a joyful moment together. As the story continued, Izuku found himself at the 𝐼𝐻 Academy, ready to begin his journey. He wore gloves to conceal his robotic arm, knowing he would eventually have to reveal it. Surrounded by girls, he felt out of place, with only himself and Ichika as the exceptions. Upon entering his classroom, Izuku noticed only girls and Ichika. 2 girls were excitedly jumping around. Izuku recognized one as 𝐒𝐮𝐬 and another as Cecilia Alcott, a representative from England. He approached 𝐒𝐮𝐬, introducing himself and expressing his familiarity with her since he was 7. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 was surprised to see him and they embraced warmly. Ichika, feeling left out, playfully complained about not receiving a hug. Maya entered and encouraged everyone to introduce themselves. Izuku stood up, introducing himself and expressing his honor to be there, bowing respectfully. Ichika struggled with his introduction, and Shifuyu, their teacher, playfully hit him on the head for his lack of enthusiasm. She declared that their first lesson would begin and asked if everyone had read the assigned book. While the class affirmed, Ichika admitted he hadn't seen the point and tossed it aside, earning another playful hit from Shifuyu. Shifuyu announced that they would choose a class representative, and to Izuku's surprise, the girls unanimously chose him and Ichika. When Izuku raised his hand to speak, he humbly stated that he didn't believe he was suitable for the role and would step back if someone more capable wanted it. Some girls appreciated his modesty, but Shifuyu decided that Ichika would be the class representative since there were no other candidates. Ichika protested, but Shifuyu insisted it was too late. Cecilia then raised her hand, questioning 𝐒𝐮𝐦𝐺𝐬's suitability for the role and suggesting it should go to someone more responsible. Shifuyu granted them 2 days to decide, dismissing the class as she and Maya left. Cecilia approached 𝐒𝐮𝐦, introducing herself as the representative of England, which left him confused. Izuku, feeling the need to clarify, explained the importance of a representative and the potential consequences of disrespecting one. Cecilia challenged both Izuku and 𝐒𝐮𝐦 to an IS duel, to which Izuku responded with concern, pointing out the dangers of judging others without knowing them. He introduced himself as Izuku Midoriya, CEO of Midoriya Industries, and reminded Cecilia that his father had funded the development of her IS. Cecilia was left speechless by his revelation. 𝐒𝐮𝐦 accepted the duel, but Izuku was worried about his friend's naivety. Later, on the rooftop, Izuku confided in 𝐒𝐮𝐬 about his father's passing. She expressed her condolences, and Izuku reassured her that his father would want him to move forward, despite the pain. As they prepared for lunch, 𝐒𝐮𝐦 asked 𝐒𝐮𝐬 for help with IS training, but Izuku pointed out that they both lacked an IS. To their surprise, Izuku revealed his necklace, declaring it to be his IS, 𝗟𝗶H. 𝐒𝐮𝐦 teased him about his gaming habits, but Izuku defended his interests. A female student approached 𝐒𝐮𝐦, offering to teach him, but 𝐒𝐮𝐦 intervened, asserting her own qualifications as 𝗟𝗶H Shinanono's younger sister. The female student backed off, wishing them a nice day, while Izuku remained focused on his goals ahead. "Do you need assistance?" Izuku expressed gratitude for the offer but insisted on facing Cecilia alone. With that, she departed, and the day came to a close. Izuku returned to his room, living alone, while 𝐒𝐮𝐦 went to her own space. Izuku changed into his suit, preparing to attend the entrance exam for the support course, donning gloves as he did so. He boarded his private jet equipped with AI and flew to UA. After a 20-minute flight, Izuku arrived at the airport, where he disembarked and the staff called a taxi for him. He thanked them, and they acknowledged his generosity in funding their services. The taxi driver refused to accept payment, recognizing Izuku's contributions to the taxi agency. At UA, Class 1A was entering the gates. Kyoka strained to hear, while Mizo struggled to see. Ochako called out for Deku, and Katsumi questioned 𝐒𝐮𝐦's intelligence, wondering where he was. Shoka announced she had Katsudon, but Momo doubted it would help. Ejiro speculated about Izubro's absence, but Izumi remained hopeful, certain that her brother was present. As the other students gathered at the gate, one student questioned Izuku's presence, while another was unsure of who they were discussing. Suddenly, a familiar voice cut through the chatter, requesting passage to watch the entrance exam. Momo recognized the voice, and Power Loader appeared, asking the crowd to let Mr. Midoriya through. The crowd parted, revealing Izuku Midoriya in his suit. Power Loader apologized for the commotion and expressed pleasure in meeting him. Izuku reciprocated the sentiment, and they shook hands. Power Loader offered to guide him to the support course exam, and they began walking toward the gates. However, someone grabbed Izuku's right hand, and he turned to see Izumi, who joyfully exclaimed that her brother had returned. Izuku silently withdrew his hand from her grasp, directing an emotionless glare at her, filled with unspoken anger. He continued to follow Power Loader, who expressed condolences regarding Izuku's father, acknowledging the pain of loss. Izuku reassured him it was all right, but Power Loader noted that he had heard Izuku lost his right arm, yet it appeared intact. Izuku then removed his glove, revealing a robotic arm, leaving Power Loader both shocked and impressed. Power Loader asked for permission to examine it, and Izuku consented, showcasing the arm's impressive design and mobility. Power Loader was amazed, noting the arm's capabilities, and Izuku explained that it also had offensive functions. He transformed his arm into a cannon, which was black with green accents. Power Loader praised the weapon, and Izuku mentioned that he could charge shots for increased power, demonstrating the cannon's various forms. Power Loader was thoroughly impressed as they entered the support course entrance exam. Power Loader introduced himself as the pro hero overseeing the exam and announced Izuku as a special guest, the CEO of Midoriya Industries. The students erupted in excitement, many of whom admired the company. The exam commenced, and after a time skip, it concluded successfully. Power Loader invited Izuku to watch the hero course exam, to which he agreed. They made their way to the viewing room where the teachers were gathered. Upon entering, Nizu acknowledged Power Loader's presence and noted Izuku's attendance. Power Loader explained that Izuku was there to observe the new student's exam, and Izuku mentioned the possibility of offering internships in the future. Nizu expressed anticipation for that prospect. Suddenly, Magnet rushed toward Izuku, affectionately calling him her baby boy. She attempted to embrace him but halted when she felt something cold against her forehead. Opening her eyes, she saw Izuku with his cannon aimed at her, warning her to keep her distance. Magnet was taken aback, realizing he would not hesitate to defend himself. Izuku retracted the cannon and resumed watching the exam, feeling somewhat bored as his dream of becoming a hero had faded. He requested Hitoshi Shinso's file, the boy he had recommended after saving him from bullies who mocked his quirk. Hitoshi was now at the recommendations and served as Izuku's secretary at his company. The exam concluded dramatically when Izumi struck the zero-pointer, injuring herself in the process. Izuku stood at the UA gates, preparing to leave when he heard a voice he despised. Izumi rushed to hug him, but he deftly dodged, causing her to fall. She questioned why he had avoided her embrace, and Izuku coldly informed her that he held deep resentment for her and her friends, urging her to keep her hands to herself. Izumi looked down, feeling guilty, while Mina questioned Izuku's change in demeanor, asserting that Izumi only wanted to show affection. Izuku dismissed their concerns, reiterating his disdain for them and their association with others he disliked. Tsuyu attempted to apologize, but Izuku demanded to know why they had taken his arm. Katsuki, frustrated, shouted at Izuku to silence him, not wanting the truth to be revealed. Shoto advised Izuku to remain quiet, but Izuku pointed out that all the teachers at UA were aware of his past, explaining why their recommendations had been rejected. Denki was shocked to learn Izuku was behind it, and Izuku confirmed that he had indeed influenced their fates. Momo pleaded for a chance to make amends, but Izuku challenged her, asking how she could possibly right the wrongs done to him. He questioned if she could invent a time machine or restore his arm, expressing his anger and pain. Tenya attempted to intervene, demanding an apology, but Izuku fired a warning shot near Tenya's face, leaving a mark. The group stared at Tenya, then back at Izuku, who had his cannon aimed at them. He warned them that any further attempts to command him would result in serious consequences. 𝐒𝐮𝐬, astonished, inquired about the cannon, and Izuku explained that his father had prepared it for their inevitable encounter, and he had made upgrades since then. Katsuki charged at Izuku, ready to retaliate, but Izuku swiftly transformed his cannon to its first form and unleashed a powerful tornado, sending Katsuki crashing into a wall. Kyoka was bewildered by the sudden attack, and Izuku confidently asked if they felt lucky now. Izuku charged his cannon and prepared to shoot again, but Eraserhead intervened. He reminded Izuku that while he understood his feelings, he needed to put the cannon down. Izuku questioned why he should, and Eraserhead pointed out that if he shot at them, he would be no better than his opponents. Reluctantly, Izuku deactivated his cannon and transformed it back into his arm. He left, knowing he had to face Cecilia the next day. Later, Izuku watched as Ichika activated his 𝐼𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵 do anything reckless. Shifuyu called for Ichika to get ready as he exited to face Cecilia, who was piloting her 𝐼𝐮𝐻𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵, a Generation 3 model. They engaged in battle. The match concluded with Maya announcing Cecilia Alcott as the winner. Ichika and Cecilia headed to the observation room, but Izuku chose not to watch the fight, wanting to maintain an advantage against Cecilia. Ichika was confused about his loss, and Shifuyu explained that he had deactivated his shield, exhausting all his energy. Maya informed Izuku that he would be up next once Blue Tier was charged. Izuku acknowledged this and went to change into his IS pilot uniform, feeling it was a bit tight and wondering how to conceal his robotic arm and the scars covering his body from past battles. With Blue Tier charged and ready, Izuku and Cecilia faced each other. Although Cecilia would not admit it, she was taken aback by Izuku's scarred body and metal arm. She asked what had happened to him, and Izuku replied that not everyone had an easy life. He was ready to begin the fight. Maya instructed them to prepare their 𝐼𝐵. Cecilia activated Blue Tier, revealing its impressive design. Izuku then activated his own 𝐼𝐵, 𝗟𝗶𝐻𝐸, which appeared with striking features reminiscent of advanced technology. As the battle commenced, Izuku charged at high speed, catching Cecilia off guard. She managed to put up a barrier, but still took some damage. Cecilia countered with her sniper rifle, firing at Izuku, who blocked the shot with a barrier but was pushed back. Seizing the opportunity, Cecilia took to the air, continuing her assault. Izuku evaded her shots, realizing that she took 1.2 seconds to reload. This insight allowed him to close the distance between them, but Cecilia retaliated with her wings, making it harder for him to dodge. After taking some hits, Izuku noticed that Cecilia could not use both her sniper rifle and wings simultaneously. He began to evade her attacks more effectively and landed a blow that drained some of her energy. Enraged, Cecilia launched rockets at him, but Izuku was ready. He deactivated his 𝐼𝐵 right arm, transforming it into his cannon, and began firing at her. Cecilia dodged his shots, prompting Izuku to change his attack to a freezing projectile. Although she initially avoided it, the attack hit the ceiling and broke into smaller projectiles that struck her. Izuku explained that it was one of his ice attacks, which not only hit her but also slowed her down. Cecilia, now aware of the threat, attempted to evade Izuku's next assault, but he had anticipated her movements. He unleashed rockets that followed her, breaking through her barrier. Using the lights from his wings, he paralyzed her, leaving her vulnerable. Izuku then soared above her, transforming his weapon again to unleash a powerful tornado attack, which Cecilia could not withstand. She crashed into the ground, creating a crater. As Izuku landed in front of her, he activated his proton cannons and charged his cannon to full power. The weapon began to glow pink and Cecilia, realizing her defeat, surrendered. Maya announced Izuku Midoriya as the winner, and both he and Cecilia returned to change before heading to the observation room. Maya inquired about Izuku's hand, to which he proudly displayed his cannon. Hooky was curious about how it didn't deplete his 𝐼𝐵 energy, and Izuku explained that the cannon operated independently of his 𝐼𝐵. This revelation surprised Cecilia, and 𝗟𝗡 clarified that Izuku's cannon was not part of 𝗟𝗶𝐻𝐸, thus not violating any rules. Maya noted that Izuku had not broken any regulations, but she was intrigued by his unique 𝐼𝐵. Izuku explained that 𝗟𝗶𝐻𝐸 was a one-of-a-kind creation from Generation 5, designed by his father. Cecilia was astonished to learn it was a Generation 5 model, and Izuku confirmed that his father had made it for him. 𝗟𝗡 reflected on Hisashi Midoriya's legacy, and Cecilia asked about him. Maya revealed that Hisashi had passed away when Izuku was 12 years old. Later, Izuku visited a flower shop to buy a bouquet. The owner asked if it was for a special occasion, but Izuku explained it was quite the opposite. After purchasing the flowers, he made his way to the cemetery, stopping at a white gravestone bearing the name Hisashi Midoriya. He placed the bouquet in front of the grave and ensured to create a barrier to prevent his mother, Inko, from visiting. Izuku expressed his gratitude to his father, acknowledging the pain of loss. 𝗟𝗡 empathized, understanding the sorrow of losing a loved one. As it began to rain, Izuku initially thought it was just the weather, but 𝗟𝗡 pointed out that he was crying. They decided to return to the academy, leaving the cemetery behind. In her room, Cecilia reflected on her victory over 𝐒𝐮𝐽 but lamented her defeat against Izuku. Why was Izuku feeling strange when he thought about 𝐒𝐮𝐽? Meanwhile, in Class 1A, they had barely passed Eraserhead's tests after Mina and Ochako had caused some mischief. Izuku was now with Charlotte, Laura, Kanzashi, Mei, and Melissa. The class was outside, preparing to start their lesson. Izuku wore a suit similar to 𝐒𝐮𝐽's, but his was black with dark green accents. 𝗟𝗡 called for the IS pilots to step forward, and Izuku, 𝐒𝐮𝐽, and Cecilia complied. Maya instructed them to activate their IS. Cecilia activated hers, declaring Blue Tier, while Izuku activated his, saying 𝗟𝗶𝐻𝐸. The other students whispered about Izuku's powerful IS, recalling how he had dominated his match against Cecilia. Ichika attempted to activate his IS but struggled at first. Shifuyu encouraged him to try again, and this time, Ichika successfully summoned Byakushiki. Shifuyu instructed them to fly. Izuku and Cecilia took to the skies effortlessly, but Ichika struggled to keep up. Cecilia offered to help him, and they began to fly together. However, Ichika soon found himself falling. He panicked, unsure of how to land, and crashed to the ground, creating a small crater. Izuku and Cecilia landed and deactivated their IS. Hooky commented on Ichika's mishap, calling him foolish. Izuku quipped back, asking Hooky to share something new. Cecilia rushed to Ichika's side, concerned for him. She asked if he was alright, and although Ichika insisted he was fine, Cecilia expressed her worry and offered to accompany him to the nurse. Hooky disagreed, insisting Ichika was fine and that he couldn't get hurt while wearing an IS. Cecilia maintained her stance, stating that Ichika should still see the nurse, and she would accompany him. This led to a tense exchange between Hooky and Cecilia, while Izuku decided to stay out of it. That night, at a party, Ichika was unexpectedly chosen as the class representative. He questioned why he had been selected, and Cecilia explained that she had stepped back, realizing her own selfishness and believing Ichika would excel in the role. Izuku received a phone call from Nizu, stepping away to take it. The girls, Hooky and Cecilia, wanted to join him, but Izuku explained it was a business call. He went to the rooftop to answer. Nizu inquired about the suits for classes 1A and 1B, and Izuku confirmed they were ready but needed to deliver them personally to avoid overworking his staff. Nizu also mentioned that Ms. Orimura had given Izuku permission to use his IS if necessary. After ending the call, Izuku went to bed. The next day, rumors circulated among the female students about a new classmate joining from China. Izuku, lost in thought, resolved to avoid any trouble when he arrived at UA. Suddenly, the door opened, revealing a girl with brown hair in pigtails and green eyes. Rin announced her arrival, eager to challenge the strongest students. All eyes turned to Izuku, Cecilia, and Ichika. Izuku recognized Rin immediately and rushed to her, lifting her in a joyful embrace. Rin initially seemed confused but soon remembered him and returned the hug, expressing her disbelief at seeing him again. Ichika noted how much Rin had changed. Just then, Shifuyu entered and playfully tapped Rin on the head, reminding her to go to class. During lunch, Izuku sat with Rin and Ichika as they caught up. Rin enjoyed ramen while Izuku opted for sushi, having developed an aversion to katsudon due to past memories. Rin asked Ichika how he ended up at UA, and he replied that it was a long story. Cecilia and Hooky, curious about Rin, asked if she and Ichika were together, to which Rin quickly replied no. Izuku intervened, introducing Rin as a childhood friend of both him and Ichika, clarifying that Hooky was their first childhood friend, while Rin was the second. Rin explained that she had become friends with them after they defended her against bullies due to her being quirkless. Izuku reflected on the discrimination faced by quirkless individuals in Japan, and as memories flooded back, his robotic arm began to tremble. Rin noticed and held his arm tightly, reassuring him that it was all right. Izuku gradually calmed down. After class, Izuku flew to UA in his jet plane, where Nizu and Cementos had constructed a rooftop landing for him. He prepared to deliver the costumes to classes 1A and 1B, using anti-gravitational boxes to assist him. On his way, he encountered Eraserhead and Vlad King, exchanging greetings. Eraserhead informed the class that they would be doing hero training, and Izuku, as the creator of their suits, was invited to present them. As he entered, the students greeted him enthusiastically. Izumi rushed to hug him, but Eraserhead used his quirk to stop her. Izumi protested, wanting to embrace her Oni-chan. Eraserhead reminded her of her previous actions, which led to Izuku revealing his robotic arm and expressing his frustration. The class fell silent as Izuku made it clear that they had underestimated the situation. Denki, trying to lighten the mood, commented on Izuku's arm, but Izuku's response was serious, explaining the limitations of his robotic arm and how it affected his ability to connect with others. Denki fell silent, and Izuku decided to leave, feeling the weight of the conversation. Izuku was getting ready to leave when 𝐒𝐮𝐲 stood up from his chair and placed a hand on Izuku's left shoulder, urging him to reconsider and be a man. In response, Izuku struck 𝐒𝐮𝐲 with his robotic arm, causing him to stumble back, his nose broken and teeth scattered. Izuku expressed his frustration, comparing 𝐒𝐮𝐲's actions to those of a disgraceful figure. 𝐒𝐻𝐬 also exited, calling for Recovery Girl as Izuku prepared to leave. Suddenly, the door swung open, revealing two individuals Izuku despised. They announced their entrance loudly, claiming to come through the door like normal people. Izuku questioned the normalcy of their arrival, noticing them staring at him in an elegant suit, albeit missing a sleeve. One of them exclaimed in surprise, but before he could finish, Izuku fired a shot that grazed his cheek. Izuku warned them not to refer to him as their son, threatening further action if they did. The other individual attempted to speak, but Izuku pointed his cannon at her, daring her to apologize. The tension escalated when the first individual demanded respect, insisting that Izuku would apologize and return to them, threatening to ruin his company and become a stay-at-home husband. Izuku, feeling frustrated, explained that he had tried to be nice but felt misunderstood. Switching his cannon to a different form, Izuku activated his gravity weapon and prepared to charge it. He fired a peculiar projectile toward his classmates, All Might, and the two individuals, causing them to fall to the ground. When one of his classmates inquired about the attack, Izuku proudly introduced his gravity weapon, which returned to him and re-entered his cannon. Izuku then made his way to Class 1B, apologizing to Vlad King for not being able to deliver the costumes. Vlad reassured him that he would handle it and wished him a good day. After demonstrating how to open the box, Izuku left and boarded a jet, returning home to rest. While he was away, Rin and Hooky argued over who should be Ichika's roommate. The next day, all three found themselves in the arena, where Maya instructed them to shake hands as a sign of friendship. They complied, and Maya announced that in this match everyone would be on their own. As the match began, Rin summoned Shenlong, a third-generation IS created by Chinese scientists. Izuku introduced his own IS, 𝗟𝗶H, prompting Rin to express curiosity about it. She then summoned 𝗀𝗏, and Ichika followed suit, activating his sword to reveal a laser blade. The three charged at one another, but Rin skillfully blocked their attacks, boasting about her superiority. As Rin retreated, she combined her weapons into a double blade, declaring the match over. Izuku, realizing he needed a strategy, thought about keeping his distance from Rin, who excelled in close combat. He flew back, making his sword and right arm armor disappear. Rin began firing from her IS shoulders, causing damage to both Izuku and Ichika. However, Izuku saw an advantage in taking damage, quickly transforming his hand into a cannon and firing at them. Rin acknowledged his use of the cannon, and Izuku excitedly revealed the upgrades he had made. He switched his cannon to its second form and unleashed a barrage of spikes that followed Rin and Ichika, causing explosions upon impact. As they prepared to fight again, an unexpected explosion shattered their shield, revealing an unknown IS pilot. The pilot targeted Izuku first, who attempted to shoot back but found his attacks ineffective. The school was placed under lockdown, preventing anyone from entering or exiting, including government members. Realizing his cannon was ineffective, Izuku reverted to his arm and prepared for battle. He informed Ichika and Rin that they needed to handle the situation themselves. Maya announced over the intercom that only the three of them could engage the pilot until the system was restored. The pilot fired at them, and while Ichika dodged, Rin defended herself, expressing her frustration at being treated as helpless. As the pilot prepared another attack, Izuku intervened with a powerful blast from his proton cannons, reminding them not to forget about him. They regrouped, and Izuku proposed a plan to stop the pilot. He instructed Ichika to distract the pilot while he and Rin prepared their strategy. Rin was hesitant to strike Izuku, but he insisted, calling her out in a way that ignited her anger. Rin began to punch Izuku, who defended himself while Ichika kept the pilot occupied. Meanwhile, Cecilia received permission to use blue tier once the system was back online. Izuku urged Rin to stop, explaining that his attack was ready. He revealed that 𝗟𝗶𝐸𝐸 had a special ability that converted damage into energy for a powerful explosion. As Izuku charged at the pilot, he told Rin and 𝐒𝐮𝐦𝐷 to get as far away as possible. They complied, and Izuku unleashed his Giga Crush attack, resulting in a massive explosion that engulfed the pilot. However, the blast left Izuku barely standing, having exhausted all his energy. 𝐒𝐮𝐦𝐷 congratulated him, but Izuku warned that the pilot was still a threat, emerging from the smoke heavily damaged. With his energy depleted, Izuku instructed 𝐒𝐮𝐷 and Rin to keep fighting while he prepared a final blast with his cannon. They nodded and engaged the pilot, with 𝐒𝐮𝐷 managing to sever one of its arms. As Izuku charged his cannon, now glowing pink, he prepared for one last attack, determined to finish the fight. 𝐒𝐮𝐷 prepared to fight once more, but his energy was nearly exhausted. He acknowledged that he was out of strength, and Rin admitted she felt the same way. The pilot, despite lacking arms, readied himself for battle, but suddenly, a blue blast struck his torso. Cecilia assured 𝐒𝐮𝐷 that she would support him. 𝐒𝐮𝐷 expressed his gratitude to Cecilia as he lost consciousness. The fight concluded, and medical personnel arrived to take Izuku and 𝐒𝐮𝐷 away. Meanwhile, Class 1A had also finished their battle, but two issues arose. Katsuki nearly harmed someone due to his overwhelming ego, and Izumi suffered injuries from her own recklessness. Back in the hospital, both Izuku and 𝐒𝐮𝐷 lay in their beds. Rin almost leaned in to kiss 𝐒𝐮𝐷, but he stirred awake. Izuku, feigning unconsciousness, wanted to observe what unfolded next. 𝐒𝐮𝐷 and Rin engaged in conversation, followed by Cecilia and Hooky, who joined in a lively debate. Izuku sat in his chair, listening to Maya as she introduced a new transfer student. A boy with blonde hair and purple eyes entered the room, introducing himself as 𝐼𝐻𝐼𝐻𝐿. The girls, except for Hooky, Cecilia, and Rin, gazed at him with admiration. Izuku thought to himself, questioning why Charlotte was there. Flashback to 10 months prior, Izuku was in France conducting business with Mr. Dunois. After a cordial handshake, Mr. Dunois introduced his daughter, Charlotte. Izuku greeted her warmly before the scene shifted back to the present. Classes concluded, and Izuku and 𝐒𝐮𝐷 were assigned to show Charles around the academy. Izuku took Charles aside to speak privately, asking 𝐒𝐮𝐷 to change. On the rooftop, Izuku confronted Charles, revealing he knew her true identity. Charles feigned ignorance, but Izuku pressed on, reminding her of their past encounter in France. When Izuku grabbed Charles, she blushed in surprise. He insisted she couldn't deceive him, and she reluctantly admitted her true identity as Charlotte Dunois, sent as a spy by her father to learn about their abilities. Izuku assured her that he wouldn't expose her secret, emphasizing that everyone at the academy was an individual. He encouraged her to embrace her time there before they headed to training. During training, Charlotte noticed Izuku's scars and robotic arm, prompting her to ask what had happened. He simply stated that not everyone had a happy life. As they began training, Maya crashed into the ground in her IS, and the battle commenced. 𝐒𝐮𝐷 dodged Cecilia's attack, while Rin combined her weapons into a double blade and threw it toward 𝐒𝐮𝐷, narrowly missing him. Maya shot at Rin's weapon, ensuring 𝐒𝐮𝐷's safety. Shifuyu announced that 𝐒𝐮𝐷 would face his sensei, and the students were divided into groups for training. Izuku began instructing a group of girls, who inquired about his scars and robotic arm. He reiterated that not everyone had a happy life, but he preferred to keep his past private. Only Rin noticed the tremor in his robotic arm, a sign of his inner turmoil. After teaching, Izuku changed back into his uniform and exited the changing room, where he found Rin waiting for him. She expressed concern over his earlier shaking, urging him to confide in her. Izuku reassured her that he was fine, but Rin insisted on supporting him, recalling how he and 𝐒𝐮𝐷 had treated her as a friend despite her quirks. Overwhelmed with emotion, Izuku hugged Rin tightly, thanking her for being there for him. He considered her like a sister, especially during his darkest times. Meanwhile, Izumi felt a sharp pain in her chest, questioning why she felt replaced. Back with Izuku and Rin, they attended their classes, where Maya introduced a new topic about hobbies and talents. As the students pondered their interests, Izuku struggled with his own insecurities, haunted by negative thoughts that led him to hyperventilate. He rushed to the bathroom, prompting concern from his classmates. Ichika alerted Maya that something was wrong with Izuku, and she quickly contacted Shifuyu for assistance. In the bathroom, Izuku vented his frustration by punching the wall, tears streaming down his face. When his classmates arrived, they were alarmed to see him in distress. Shifuyu intervened, urging Izuku to calm down. In a moment of rage, Izuku transformed his arm into a cannon and fired a charged shot at her, missing as she dodged. The blast created a large hole in the wall, and Izuku snapped back to reality, realizing what he had done. He expressed his fear and regret, but Shifuyu reassured him that it was important to manage his emotions and be mindful of his actions. Izuku quickly adjusted the cannon back to his arm. Shifuyu instructed him to head to the infirmary, where they would assist him with his situation. After a brief time skip, courtesy of Kurumi, Izuku, Ichika, and Charles found themselves in a new room. Ichika discovered that Charles was actually Charlotte, and both Izuku and Ichika promised to keep the secret. In class, Izuku had improved since the previous day and was now attending therapy sessions. Maya introduced a new transfer student, a short girl with long silver hair. Laura introduced herself as 𝐼𝐻𝐬 and then unexpectedly slapped Ichika, declaring that she would never forgive him before choosing a seat. Izuku pondered what had caused her outburst. In the future, Laura challenged Izuku, demanding to see what 𝐼𝐻𝐻𝐸 could do. The next time would feature a battle between Izuku and Ichika against Laura and Hooky. Afterward, they planned to go swimsuit shopping, and 𝐼𝐻𝐻𝐸 would make an appearance. As the day came to an end, everyone was left in shock over Laura's slap to Ichika. Izuku stood on the rooftop, gazing at the sky, troubled by Laura's actions. Unable to find an answer, he decided to go to sleep. Upon entering, he found Charlotte alone. Izuku asked where Ichika was, and Charlotte informed him that he had gone to eat with Cecilia, who mentioned that Ichika hadn't eaten much. Izuku went to change, and as he removed his top uniform, Charlotte caught sight of his scarred body and robotic arm. His body bore the marks of past battles, scars from explosions, burns, acid, stabs, electricity, kicks, and falls. Charlotte expressed her concern, asking how he could say he hadn't had a happy life. Izuku felt it was time to share his story, explaining that he had been diagnosed as Quirkless at the age of 4. He recounted how, despite Japan's low villain activity, he faced bullying and torment for 3 years until his father saved him. He shared the pain of losing his right arm and the heartbreak of witnessing his father's death when he was 12. Charlotte began to cry, overwhelmed by his experiences. Izuku comforted her, assuring her it was okay. She questioned how it could be okay when he had lost so much. Izuku explained that his father would want him to move forward and live his life. Just then, Ichika burst in, looking frantic. He didn't want to discuss what had happened but brought food for Charles. Charlotte attempted to split her food sticks, but they broke awkwardly. She turned to Izuku, asking him to feed her since he had offered to help. With a sigh, he agreed and asked Ichika to prepare some tea. The next day, Ichika struggled with Hooky, Cecilia, and Rin, who were all trying to teach him at once. Frustrated, Izuku intervened, pointing out that they were all being foolish and that they needed to focus. He and Charles needed space to practice. Ichika activated Byakushiki, while Charles summoned her Generation 2 IS, created by the Dunwa engineers. Izuku called forth 𝐼𝐻𝐻𝐸, impressing Charles, who had never seen such an IS before. Izuku explained that it was developed by his father's company, Midoriya Industries, which was renowned for its success. As they trained, Izuku demonstrated his skills, slicing targets with his sword while using his cannon to hit distant ones. Charles shot at the targets with her rifle, and Ichika admired their prowess. Charles suggested a test, but Izuku declined, content with his cannon. She expressed her curiosity about how he was allowed to use it, and Izuku clarified that it was part of his arm and not against any rules. Suddenly, a purple blast erupted, revealing Laura in her Generation 4 IS, 𝗟𝗟𝗟𝗏. Izuku and Ichika assumed fighting stances, and Laura challenged them, seeking a worthy opponent for her IS. However, she dismissed them as unworthy and left, claiming they were wasting her time. At the end of the day, Izuku found himself in Japan, purchasing a bouquet of flowers for his father's grave. On his way to the cemetery, he encountered Kamui Woods, Death Arms, and Tinty Lady on patrol. Kamui greeted him, and a lady, unaware of the recent funeral, asked if he was celebrating something happy. Izuku explained that it was quite the opposite, and Kamui offered his condolences for his father's passing. Arriving at Hisashi's grave, Izuku noticed the security measures in place, including an electric fence and rifles ready to defend against intruders. He used his access card to enter and placed the flowers beside the tombstone, clearing away the leaves. Overcome with emotion, he spoke to his father, promising to visit every day and expressing gratitude for the happiness he had found, surrounded by caring people. After wiping away his tears, Izuku received a call from Nizu. He answered, and Nizu inquired about his day. Izuku mentioned visiting his father's grave and noted that Nizu and others had also brought flowers. Nizu explained that the school had been targeted by reporters and a mysterious individual with an unregistered quirk, asking for Izuku's help with the security program, knowing that Midoriya Industries had a reputation for strong security measures. Izuku readily agreed to assist his uncle, determined to ensure the safety of UA. After Izuku received the program, he made his way to UA to deliver it to Nizu. Upon arriving at UA, he found himself unable to enter, so he called Nizu for assistance. While waiting for Shota to arrive, reporters spotted Izuku and quickly surrounded him, eager to ask questions. They wanted to know what he was doing in front of UA, but Izuku explained that the information was classified and that he had business with Principal Nizu. When asked about All Might, he expressed his disinterest in heroes, reflecting on the pain they had caused him in the past. The reporters continued with their inquiries, one even asking if he was single. Before he could respond, 𝐒𝐻𝐵 arrived and opened the gate, instructing the reporters to leave Izuku alone as he had important matters to attend to. Grateful, Izuku thanked 𝐒𝐻𝐵 and followed him through the halls until they reached the principal's office. Inside, Nizu greeted Izuku warmly, referring to him as his nephew. Izuku reciprocated the sentiment and quickly got to work, inserting a USB drive into Nizu's computer to upload the security program for UA. Once he finished, he informed Nizu that the next part would be ready the following day, along with workers to complete the system. Nizu expressed his gratitude for Izuku's assistance, to which Izuku replied that it was his way of thanking Nizu for his past support. As Izuku prepared to leave the office, he heard a familiar voice that filled him with disdain. Izumi rushed in to hug him, but Izuku transformed his arm into a cannon and fired a spark of energy at her, causing her to fall to the ground. He warned her not to touch him again, expressing his deep-seated anger. Shoka questioned his hostility, but Izuku made it clear that he wanted nothing to do with them. Tenya admonished Izuku for his harsh words, urging him to apologize, but Izuku retorted defiantly, insisting that he was not their friend and that he would not be ordered around. Mina and Ejiro attempted to apologize for their past actions, but Izuku challenged them, asking if they could erase his scars or undo the years of pain he had endured. He declared that he wanted nothing to do with them, even breaking a promise to marry Katsumi in the future. The emotional confrontation escalated, with Katsuki growing angry and grabbing Izuku by the collar, demanding that he forget the past and reconcile with his sister. Izuku, however, threatened to use his cannon against Katsuki, making it clear that he was serious. As tensions rose, Izuku decided to phase through Katsuki, escaping their grasp. He explained that his weapon allowed him to pass through objects, though he couldn't attack while using it. Afterward, he left the scene, returning to the academy to rest. The next day, Izuku, Ichika, Hookie, and Charles watched as Cecilia and Rin trained. Izuku overheard rumors that winning the tournament could lead to a date with Ichika, prompting him to feel sympathy for her. Laura entered the training area, seeking a sparring partner, and began attacking Cecilia and Rin despite Ichika's protests. Determined to intervene, Izuku transformed into 𝐼𝐼𝐻𝐵 and joined the fray alongside Ichika, who activated Byakushiki. They both charged at Laura, but she blocked Ichika's attack with an energy field. Realizing close-range attacks weren't effective, Izuku switched tactics, transforming his arm into a cannon and firing at 𝐼𝐼𝐻 while maneuvering around her. 𝐼𝐼𝐻, annoyed, continued to fight back, but 𝐒𝐮𝐻 seized the moment to help Cecilia and Rin, who were struggling on the ground. As 𝐼𝐼𝐻 charged at 𝐒𝐮𝐻, Charles provided cover fire, allowing Izuku to shoot at 𝐼𝐼𝐻 as well. The battle intensified, with Izuku using his abilities strategically to push 𝐼𝐻𝐻 away. As night fell, 𝐼𝐻𝐻 stood on the rooftop, revealing a gemstone eye beneath her eye patch. The following day, Izuku found himself in the arena facing 𝐼𝐻𝐻, Hooky, 𝐒𝐮𝐻, and Charles. Aware that they might team up against him, he prepared himself for the match. When the match began, 𝐼𝐻𝐻 and Hooky charged at 𝐒𝐮𝐻, but Izuku remained still, observing. He then transformed his arm into a cannon and fired homing torpedoes at them, catching them off guard. As they were hit, Izuku took the opportunity to join the fight, firing normal shots at them as they attempted to dodge. Hooky deflected his shots with her sword and charged at him, but Izuku was ready with a counter. Izuku transformed his weapon into a flamethrower, unleashing a torrent of fire towards Hooky, who staggered under the intense heat. With determination, Izuku declared that she would be defeated. He swiftly changed his weapon again, launching a tornado that sent Hooky flying backward. Although she prepared for another attack, her energy was nearly spent, and she soon fell to the ground, unable to continue. Meanwhile, 𝐼𝐻𝐻 struggled against 𝐒𝐮𝐻 and Charles. 𝐒𝐮𝐻 readied himself for a decisive strike, but he too found his energy depleted. Now, only Izuku, Charles, and 𝐼𝐻𝐻 remained in the fight. Izuku charged at 𝐼𝐻𝐻 and Charles, both of whom assumed defensive stances. He aimed his sword at 𝐼𝐻𝐻, but she skillfully blocked the strike with her blade arm. She taunted him, questioning if he thought he could catch her off guard. Izuku, confident in his strategy, acknowledged her defense and swiftly moved aside, allowing Charles to hit 𝐼𝐻𝐻 with a projectile from his grenade launcher. Frustrated, Charles expressed his disappointment at missing both targets. Izuku encouraged him to try again. Just then, both Izuku and 𝐼𝐻𝐻 were struck by a sniper bolt, and they turned to see 𝐒𝐮𝐻 wielding Charles's weapon. Charles then used armor-piercing ammunition, targeting 𝐼𝐻𝐻 since she was closer. The impact sent her crashing against the wall, causing significant damage. In a flashback, 𝐼𝐻𝐻 transformed into a younger version of herself, resembling Shifuyu. The other pilots rushed in to intervene, but 𝐒𝐮𝐻, injured with a cut on his left arm, was reluctant to continue fighting. Hooky, concerned for 𝐒𝐮𝐻, slapped him to bring him back to his senses. Charles inquired about what had happened, and Izuku expressed the urgency to stop 𝐼𝐻𝐻. Charles asked if Izuku had a plan, to which Izuku confidently replied that he did. As Izuku charged at 𝐼𝐻𝐻, she mirrored his movement, and their swords clashed. With a smirk, Izuku activated his proton cannons, sending 𝐼𝐻𝐻 flying away. She charged at him once more, but Izuku harnessed the green light from his wings to paralyze her. Surrounded by a green aura, 𝐼𝐻𝐻 was immobilized. Seizing the moment, Izuku executed a vertical slash, causing her to fall from the impact. He deactivated 𝗟𝗶𝐻𝐸 and caught her gently, assuring her that she would be fine. 𝐼𝐻𝐻 opened her eyes, confused about what had transpired. Shifuyu explained the situation to her, preparing to leave but reminding 𝐼𝐻𝐻 not to forget her own identity. In the cafeteria, 𝐒𝐮𝐻 received a knee to the stomach after jokingly suggesting shopping with Hooky. Izuku pondered why Hooky didn't make 𝐒𝐮𝐻 carry all the items she purchased. Maya then announced that there would be gender-separated hot baths. In the hot water, 𝐒𝐮𝐻 expressed his contentment, and Izuku agreed. 𝐒𝐮𝐻 announced he was leaving to get some sleep, and Izuku stayed behind for a while longer. Suddenly, he heard the door open again and turned to see Charlotte, wrapped only in a towel. He quickly averted his gaze, and Charlotte requested that he not look at her. She entered the bath, and Izuku offered to leave, but she insisted he stay to talk. They sat back to back, and Charlotte took Izuku's left hand, thanking him for his support. She asked him to turn around, and despite his hesitation, he complied without looking at her directly. Charlotte placed a hand on his cheek and kissed him, leaving Izuku in shock. She confessed her feelings, asking if she could be his girlfriend. Unsure of himself, Izuku promised to try his best. Meanwhile, Class 1A faced an attack from villains. Izuku received a notification and dispatched medical nanobots to assist his classmates. The girls of Class 1A felt a sharp pain in their chests, expressing their concern for Izuku. The following day, Maya nervously introduced a new transfer student, Charlotte, who greeted everyone. Some students were surprised to learn that Charles had been a girl all along, while others speculated about the implications of the boys using the hot bath the previous night. Suddenly, Rin burst in, demanding Ichika's attention. Despite his protests of innocence, Rin fired at Ichika, but Izuku intervened, activating 𝐼𝐼𝐻𝐿 and shielding Laura with barriers. After deactivating his IS, Izuku thanked Laura for her assistance. She approached him, grabbing his collar and kissing him, declaring that he would be her husband. Izuku was taken aback by her boldness. Time passed, and Izuku found himself sleeping in his room when he felt a pair of legs wrap around him. He pulled the blanket away to find Laura there, confused about why she was in his bed. She playfully insisted that married couples share beds. Izuku reminded her that they weren't married yet, prompting Laura to suggest they get to know each other better. He acknowledged her point but reminded her that he was already with Charlotte. Laura, frustrated, dressed and left, leaving Izuku concerned for her well-being. He changed clothes and prepared for the day, meeting up with Charlotte. They walked to class hand in hand, drawing mixed reactions from their classmates. Once in the classroom, 𝐒𝐮𝐲𝐬 announced that they would have a week off for a trip to the beach, and Class 1A would join them. Izuku was shocked by the news and expressed his frustration, but 𝐒𝐮𝐲𝐬 reminded him to watch his language. After class, Izuku took out his anger during training, practicing with his dual shotguns and 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐻𝐿. Meanwhile, Laura sought to have a conversation with Charlotte about Izuku. Once his training was complete, Izuku calmed down and prepared to go shopping for the trip. He invited Charlotte to join him, and she agreed. Just then, a knock came at his door, revealing both Charlotte and Laura. Without hesitation, Laura kissed him, leaving Izuku bewildered. Charlotte confirmed Laura's feelings for him, stating that she had proven herself worthy. Despite his uncertainty, Izuku promised to do his best to navigate this complicated situation. Both were pleased about that. Meanwhile, in Class 1A, the girls felt as if their hearts had been pierced by an icy dagger. Back to Izuku, he and Charlotte went shopping in Japan, while Laura ventured alone, wanting to surprise Izuku. They arrived at a mall, holding hands as they walked, drawing the attention of passers-by. A random guy pointed out Izuku, the CEO of Midoriya Industries, while a girl noted that he had a girlfriend. As they reached the women's swimsuit section, Izuku decided to wait on a bench. However, Charlotte grabbed his arm, insisting he join her to give his opinion. Izuku protested, claiming that the store would be a graveyard for his wallet, but Charlotte was undeterred and dragged him into a fitting room. After trying on a swimsuit, Charlotte asked for his thoughts. He complimented her, noting it matched her hair, but urged her to hurry so they wouldn't get caught. Suddenly, the curtain was pulled aside, revealing 𝐒𝐮𝐲𝐬, Maya, and a customer. Maya scolded them for their antics. Once they finished shopping, the group returned to the academy just as a jet landed. Inside were the students from classes 1A and 1B, along with 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐻𝐿, 𝐻𝗏, 𝐼𝐮𝐲, All Might, and Magnet Beach. 𝐼𝐮𝐲 reminded everyone that the IS could only be used by females and that they needed to behave, especially Kaminari and Mineta. As the jet door opened, 𝐒𝐮𝐲𝐬 welcomed them, and the students noticed Izuku in the IS Academy uniform. They rushed to greet him, but Izuku quickly transformed his arm into a cannon, shooting into the air to stop them. He warned them to stay away or face the consequences. Cecilia questioned his hostility, and Izuku explained that his past experiences with bullying had left him scarred. Laura activated her IS arm, pointing the blade towards Class 1A, declaring they had some nerve showing up after their treatment of her husband. The revelation shocked everyone, and Izuku confirmed that Laura was indeed his girlfriend and possibly future wife. He also clarified that he was dating both Charlotte and Laura, which caused further confusion among the girls. Izuku confronted the class about their past behavior, revealing the scars they had left on him. Itsuka questioned how they could bully someone for being quirkless, and Izuku introduced himself as the CEO of Midoriya Industries. He explained that the hero costumes they had received were made by his company, but he credited his employees for their hard work. As tensions eased, Hitoshi approached Izuku, and they exchanged a fist bump, surprising everyone. Hitoshi explained that he had entered the hero course thanks to Izuku's recommendation and now worked as his secretary. Izuku then led everyone to their accommodations for the night, warning the girls about the two perverts in their midst. Later, as Izuku prepared for bed, the 1A girls contemplated following him but were deterred by his canon warning. The next day, everyone boarded a train for their trip, but Izuku's girlfriends took the seats next to him, leaving the 1A girls frustrated. Upon arriving at the resort, Izuku unpacked and changed into his swimsuit, drawing the attention of the 1A girls. However, their admiration faded when they noticed his scars and robotic arm. He spotted Charlotte and Laura, the latter shyly wrapped in bandages. After some encouragement, Charlotte unveiled Laura, who asked for Izuku's opinion. He reassured her of her beauty, regardless of her appearance, and spun her around in joy, expressing his love for both her and Charlotte. Just then, Izumi interrupted, and Izuku complimented her outfit, but he quickly dismissed the 1A girls, reminding them of their past behavior. He then invited Charlotte and Laura to join him for ice cream, leaving the 1A girls feeling guilty. Rin approached, questioning their treatment of Izuku and highlighting her fair treatment of him compared to theirs. Rin stood firm for Izuku, expressing her concern about the impact Izumi had on him. She revealed that Izuku had nearly suffered a heart attack due to the memories of what Izumi had done, causing his metal arm to tremble at the thought. To comfort him, Rin often stayed by his side at night. Izumi confronted Rin, questioning her closeness to Izuku, to which Rin responded that she viewed him as a brother, while Izuku saw her as a sister. Rin challenged Izumi's claim to brotherhood, reminding her of the pain she had caused Izuku in the past. Izumi dismissed Rin's words, insisting she knew nothing of the situation. Rin, however, was aware of everything that had transpired, having seen Izuku's memories when they first met. Katsumi, growing increasingly frustrated, activated her quirk, creating small explosions in her palms as she warned Rin to stay away from Izuku or face consequences. Rin remained unfazed, pointing out that any attack on her could escalate tensions between China and Japan, as she was the representative of China. Kyoka, confused, asked for clarification, but Rin stood her ground. Just then, Izuku arrived with Charlotte and Laura, who were unaware of the tension. He asked them to play volleyball with Ichika while he spoke with Rin privately. They agreed and left, allowing Izuku to take Rin to a nearby rock. Izuku acknowledged Rin's protective nature but cautioned her against engaging in conflict with the others, explaining that their minds were closed to reason. He compared their stubbornness to speaking to a wall, as they believed he had feelings for them. As they sat together enjoying ice cream, Izuku, aware of Rin's feelings for Ichika, playfully inquired about her plans to confess. Rin blushed, denying any such intentions, but Izuku was not fooled, having observed her interactions with Ichika. During dinner, the students of 𝐼S Academy gathered to eat sushi. Charlotte, in a moment of boldness, consumed an entire serving of wasabi, prompting Izuku to offer her tea to cool down the heat. After finishing his meal, Izuku decided to take a walk, with Shifuyu advising him not to linger too long. Once outside, Izuku climbed to the top of some rocks, reflecting on his arm and the looming presence of 𝐼𝐴. He sensed the approach of his classmates, who emerged from their hiding spots. Izumi stepped forward, expressing a longing to apologize for their past actions. Izuku coldly declined, stating that mere apologies could not erase his scars or the years of suffering he endured. He emphasized that if their words could not heal him, he had no interest in them. Katsumi attempted to plead with him, but Izuku cut her off, firmly stating he would never forgive them. He challenged Tenya, who urged him to apologize, but Izuku transformed his arm into a cannon, daring Tenya to insist on an apology. The atmosphere grew tense, and when Katsuki charged at Izuku, he skillfully dodged and countered with powerful strikes, bringing Katsuki to the ground. Mashiaro, impressed, questioned Izuku's combat skills, to which Izuku replied that he had trained hard. He then aimed his cannon at Katsuki's head, warning him it would only take one shot. Katsuki, attempting to provoke Izuku, was met with a warning shot that landed dangerously close. Izuku, after a moment of contemplation, reverted his cannon back to an arm, choosing to spare Katsuki. He declared that while he could easily harm him, he refused to stoop to that level and left to gather his belongings for a night outside on the rocks. As he prepared for bed, he overheard 𝐒𝐮𝐬 giving massages to the girls, and he inflated a portable bed to sleep on. Meanwhile, 𝐒𝐮𝐬 received a reassuring call from someone promising to visit the next day. The next morning, Izuku was in the kitchen, showcasing his cooking skills as he prepared breakfast. Inko expressed concern for his safety, but Izuku assured her he was capable, having learned to fend for himself from a young age due to neglect and hardship. As he finished cooking, he cleaned up after himself and enjoyed a quiet meal. Afterward, he changed into his training outfit and stepped outside, where he encountered 𝐒𝐮𝐬, who was intrigued by some rabbit ears on the ground. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 pulled them, triggering a surprising response as a giant metallic carrot appeared, revealing 𝗃𝐵𝐵, the creator of 𝐼S. 𝗃𝐵𝐵 greeted 𝐒𝐮𝐬 warmly, and the group gathered for a discussion led by Shifuyu, focusing on the relationship between heroes and 𝐼S users. 𝗃𝐵𝐵 playfully interacted with 𝐒𝐮𝐬, who was initially shy, and the atmosphere lightened as they all engaged in friendly banter. As the conversation continued, 𝗃𝐵𝐵 introduced herself to everyone, and Cecilia recognized her as the famous creator of 𝐼S. Izuku, however, made it clear that he did not appreciate being compared to Izumi, asserting his individuality and distancing himself from her. It was not anyone's business. Shifuyu asked Midoriya to explain why 𝗃𝐵𝐵 was pointing at him. Izuku explained that his father, along with others at Midoriya Industries, had built 𝗟𝗶H with proper authorization and had created a new core for the 𝐼S. His father had chosen not to allow 𝗃𝐵𝐵 to assist in the construction of 𝗟𝗶H. 𝗃𝐵𝐵, with an annoyed expression, questioned why Hisashi had denied her the opportunity to help. Izuku responded that his father had his reasons for that decision. 𝗃𝐵𝐵 then pleaded with Izuku to let her upgrade 𝗟𝗶H, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. Izuku reminded her that such tactics would not work on him. 𝗃𝐵𝐵, feeling disappointed, noted that 𝐒𝐮𝐬's 𝐼S was approaching. From the sky descended a diamond, which transformed into 𝐒𝐮𝐬's personal 𝐼S, 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐃𝐞𝐭𝐚. Shifuyu urged 𝐒𝐮𝐬 to enter 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐃𝐞𝐭𝐚, and 𝗃𝐵𝐵 completed the necessary tests. She instructed 𝐒𝐮𝐬 to proceed with a maneuver. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 took to the skies, marveling at the capabilities of 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐃. 𝗃𝐵𝐵 commented on its speed and encouraged 𝐒𝐮𝐬 to try out its features. After landing, 𝐒𝐮𝐬 contemplated the potential of 𝗟𝗏𝐻𝐿. 𝗃𝐵𝐵 then declared the need for a sparring partner and turned her gaze toward Izuku, suggesting he would be the one. Izuku was taken aback, questioning why he was chosen. 𝗃𝐵𝐵 explained that she wanted to see what 𝗟𝗏𝐻𝐿 was capable of in action. Katsumi inquired about Izuku's intentions, while 𝗃𝐵𝐵 confirmed he would be fighting against 𝗟𝗏𝐻𝐿. Izumi protested, insisting that her brother was not strong enough. Rin interjected, calling her foolish, asserting that Izuku was one of the strongest 𝐼S pilots at the academy. Cecilia and Rin both confirmed his prowess, mentioning how he had defeated them in the past. Laura added that he had saved her, prompting Katsuki to dismiss their claims, insisting that Izuku was merely a burden. In response, Izuku called upon his 𝐼S, 𝗟𝗏𝐻𝐿, which materialized before everyone. The students of classes 1A, 1B, and their teachers were left in awe at the sight of 𝗟𝗏𝐻𝐿. Mina questioned what it was, and Shifuyu clarified that it was Midoriya's 𝐼S, created by Midoriya Industries. Katsuki, still skeptical, shouted that it didn't matter if Izuku had such a machine, as he was still just a waste of space. Izuku turned to Katsuki, challenging him with a question. Everyone's attention shifted to Izuku as he looked at Katsuki and pondered aloud whether he felt lucky. In a dramatic display, Izuku summoned his dual shotguns, aimed them at Katsuki, and activated his proton cannons, creating an intense atmosphere. He posed the question again, leaving the room in silence before he dismissed the weapons, returning them to their normal state. Tenya confronted Izuku, expressing his outrage at the threat directed towards a friend and demanding an explanation for using the mech without permission. He insisted that it should be handed over to the authorities for destruction. In response, Izuku stepped forward and swiftly knocked Tenya down, asserting that he had permission to use his IS and that Tenya had no authority over him. With tensions high, Izuku and Hooky took to the skies, preparing for battle. 𝐼𝐴 signaled the start of the fight. Hooky dashed forward, attempting to slash at Izuku with her katana. Although Izuku barely caught sight of her, he managed to activate a barrier just in time, but the force of her attack pushed him back. Izuku acknowledged the challenge, while Hooky declared that this encounter would not mirror their last. Izuku summoned 𝗟𝗡𝐿 and began firing at Hooky, who skillfully dodged the shots. As Hooky closed the distance, she landed a powerful blow on Izuku, nearly sending him into the water. 𝗃𝐵 confidently proclaimed that 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐽𝐸 was superior to 𝗟𝗶𝐻𝐸, but 𝗂𝗡𝐻 cautioned her not to be too certain, reminding everyone that both mechs were from the same generation and that the fight was far from over. Back in the fray, Izuku summoned a sword to his left arm, ready to continue the battle. Hooky taunted him, asking if he was ready to give up, to which Izuku responded with determination. Hooky began to spin around him, striking from various angles, putting Izuku's defenses to the test. 𝗃𝐵 announced that the fight was over, but Charlotte disagreed, insisting that it was not finished yet. As the spectators watched intently, Izuku closed his eyes, bracing himself and absorbing the hits. Just as Hooky prepared for a decisive slash from behind, Izuku managed to block the attack, revealing that 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐽𝐸 was indeed faster than 𝗟𝗶𝐻𝐸. The mistake had been made. When Izuku dashed forward, he left a small breeze that indicated where he would strike next. If he could read those breezes, then his speed would be rendered ineffective. Izuku then deactivated the armlet on his right hand, transforming it into a cannon, shifting into his third form, and fired a drill toward Hooky's abdomen, delivering a significant impact. 𝗃𝐵 expressed surprise, while 𝗂𝗡𝐻 noted that both were powerful opponents, but Midoriya was more strategic than 𝐼𝐻𝐻𝐸. Izuku began to unleash regular shots at Hooky, who skillfully blocked them with her katanas. He then declared that he would see if she could handle this next move. Izuku fired a sphere that generated a small force field, immobilizing Hooky. Confused, Hooky questioned what was happening, to which Izuku explained that it was his gravity weapon, the gravity beetle. He elaborated that when used, it paralyzed opponents for 10 seconds, and when charged, it slammed them into the ground. 𝗃𝐵 wondered where he had acquired such a weapon. The memories of Izuku's previous encounters flashed through the minds of 1A, Toshinori, and Inko. Utilizing the green lights from his wings, Izuku paralyzed Hooky, then activated his proton cannons, sending her crashing to the ground. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐽𝐸 was heavily damaged. Izuku landed in front of her, pointing his cannon while charging it. He demanded her surrender, and Hooky yielded. Izuku reverted the cannon back to his arm and returned to the others. 𝗂𝗡𝐻 announced that Midoriya had won. As Izuku deactivated his IS, 𝗃𝐵 approached him with an annoyed expression, questioning why he hadn't informed her about his gravity weapon. Izuku replied that he had his reasons and that they had more pressing matters to attend to. Just then, Maya arrived with urgent news, prompting everyone to focus on the emergency. Izuku expressed his astonishment, while 𝗂𝗡𝐻 teased him about his fondness for the movie Back to the Future. Izuku confirmed that he considered all 3 films masterpieces. Cecilia inquired if he planned to build a DeLorean time machine, to which Izuku innocently whistled. Laura pressed him on whether he had indeed built one, and he admitted it was still a prototype. 𝗂𝗡𝐻, however, insisted they focus on their mission, leading everyone to discuss their objectives. Later, Izuku and the other IS pilots gathered in a room to strategize about the mission. 1A, Toshinori, and Inko attempted to enter but were stopped. Izumi questioned the exclusion, and 𝗂𝗡𝐻 explained that the meeting was strictly for IS pilots. She then entered the room to begin discussions. 𝗂𝗡𝐻 informed Midoriya that he would be crucial for the mission, as his gravity weapon would be perfect for stopping the pilot, allowing the others to attack with full force. Suddenly, 𝗃𝐵 emerged from the vents with a different idea, suggesting they send Hooky, as it was time for 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐽𝐸 to shine. Izuku, however, expressed his concerns about Hooky's lack of experience with 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐽𝐸. 𝗂𝗡𝐻 sided with him, as did Laura. After much debate, they reached a consensus. 𝗂𝗡𝐻 outlined the plan. Shinanono would carry 𝐼𝐻𝐬 on her back, and when close enough, 𝐼𝐻𝐬 would deliver a powerful attack. Then, Midoriya would use his gravity weapon on the 𝐒𝐮𝐲𝐽 to immobilize him before unleashing his proton cannons. Everyone agreed to the plan, and 𝗂𝐿 informed them they would depart the next day. As they left, Izuku encountered 1A, Toshinori, and Inko. He questioned their intentions, and Toshinori attempted to speak, but Izuku transformed his arm into the cannon, pointing it at Toshinori while charging a shot. He warned Toshinori to choose his words carefully, or he would fire. Inko interjected, wanting to know what he had discussed with 𝗂𝐿 or 𝐼𝐻𝐬, but Izuku insisted that the information was classified, meant only for IS pilots. It's not for heroes. Toshinori expressed his concerns, but Izuku firmly insisted that it wasn't about heroes and urged Toshinori to be quiet. Tenya reprimanded Izuku for his disrespectful tone, demanding an apology and ordering him to reveal what he had discussed with a certain individual. In a moment of frustration, Izuku retaliated, striking Tenya and causing him to stumble back, visibly hurt. Izuku warned Tenya not to assume he had any authority over him. Charlotte and Laura arrived, advising Tenya to leave Izuku alone, as he had made his feelings clear. Izumi attempted to intervene, but Izuku asserted that Charlotte and Laura were his girlfriends. Katsumi contested this, claiming she should be his girlfriend, but Izuku dismissed her, expressing his lack of interest in her or anyone from her class. His harsh words struck the girls deeply. Inko, Izuku's mother, reacted by slapping him, expressing her disappointment in his choice of words towards girls. Izuku touched his reddened cheek, realizing the gravity of the situation. Inko quickly apologized, but Izuku, feeling provoked, decided to play by her rules. He summoned his left arm from 𝗟𝗶𝐻𝐸, gripping Inko's neck and lifting her off the ground, causing her to struggle for breath. As he prepared to unleash an attack, Izumi cried out, pleading for him to stop, while 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐬 and Denki urged him to reconsider. Toshinori, too, implored Izuku not to go through with it. Suddenly, 𝗂𝐿's voice broke through, commanding Izuku to release Inko. Izuku questioned why he should comply, but 𝗂𝐿 reminded him of the consequences that would follow. Reluctantly, Izuku let go of Inko, who gasped for air. Toshinori and Izumi rushed to check on her, tears in their eyes. Izuku warned them that this was a warning, and next time he wouldn't hesitate to act. He then left with Charlotte, Laura, and 𝗂𝐿. The following day, 𝗂𝐻𝐬 was overly confident about their mission, which began to worry the others. Outside, Izuku, Ichika, and 𝗂𝐻𝐬 prepared for deployment. 𝗂𝐿 instructed them to activate their IS. Izuku summoned 𝗟𝗶𝐻𝐸, Ichika called forth Byakushiki, and 𝗂𝐻𝐬 activated 𝗂𝐻𝐸𝐽. 𝗂𝐿 reminded Ichika to strike 𝗟𝗏𝐽𝐽 with everything he had and asked Izuku if he could keep pace with 𝗂𝐻𝐸𝐽's speed. Izuku affirmed that he could, and 𝗂𝐻𝐸 expressed confidence in their mission. At the base, 𝗂𝐿 opened a private communication with Ichika and Izuku, warning them to be cautious due to 𝗂𝐻𝐸's overconfidence. The two boys exchanged glances and nodded in understanding. Ichika climbed onto 𝗂𝐻𝐸's back, and despite her initial reluctance, she agreed to make an exception for him. As they took off, Izuku and Ichika marveled at 𝗂𝐻𝐸𝐽's speed, with Izuku managing to keep up. After a few minutes, they spotted 𝗟𝗏𝐽𝐽. 𝗂𝐿 instructed them to engage. Ichika dismounted and charged at 𝗟𝗏𝐽𝐽 with his sword, but it was blocked. He attempted again, but the result was the same. 𝗂𝐻𝐸 joined the fray while Izuku observed, noting how she was adapting to the fighting. Suddenly, Ichika halted 𝗂𝐻𝐸, pointing out a ship below. Despite initial disbelief, 𝗂𝐿 confirmed it was an illegal fishing vessel. As the 𝗟𝗏𝐽𝐽 began to retaliate, 𝗂𝐻𝐸 questioned Ichika's hesitation, insisting that the criminals deserved punishment. Izuku countered, suggesting that they might be acting out of necessity for their families. Ichika, confused by 𝗂𝐻𝐸's change in demeanor, defended the ship's occupants. When 𝗟𝗏𝐽𝐽 launched an attack, Ichika pushed 𝗂𝐻𝐸 out of harm's way, taking the hit himself. Izuku summoned his sword and charged at 𝗟𝗏𝐽𝐽, analyzing its movements. He declared that he wouldn't let it escape. As 𝗟𝗏𝐽𝐽 attempted to flee, Izuku transformed his arm into a cannon, using a gravity weapon to immobilize it. He warned that he wouldn't allow it to escape and prepared to fire his proton cannons. However, the gravity effect wore off, allowing 𝐒𝐮𝐲𝐫 to partially evade the attack, which drained Izuku's energy. He called for backup, stating he was nearly depleted and that 𝐒𝐮𝐽 needed assistance. Shifuyu acknowledged the request, and a team consisting of Rin, Laura, and Cecilia was dispatched to their location. They arrived to help 𝐒𝐮𝐽 while Charlotte and Laura supported Izuku back to the base. Once there, medics took 𝐒𝐮𝐽 for treatment, while Izuku, exhausted, deactivated 𝗟𝗶𝐻𝐸 and collapsed. Shifuyu checked on Izuku, who assured her he just needed rest. The 1A girls and Inko rushed to him, but Shifuyu intervened, warning them to stay back. She instructed 2 boys from 1B to help Izuku to his room. They complied, assuring him they would take care of him. As they assisted him, Izuku expressed his gratitude. Meanwhile, 𝐒𝐮𝐽 remained in critical condition, supported by machines, while Hookie, Cecilia, and Rin stayed by his side. Charlotte and Laura prepared food for when Izuku would wake up. As Izuku began to stir, he opened his eyes to find himself in a compromising position, realizing he was not alone in his bed. Startled, he reacted instinctively, pushing Momo away and demanding an explanation for her presence. Momo, attempting to justify her actions, faced his anger as he insisted he didn't need her company. Izuku felt that Momo had made his life incredibly difficult. Momo expressed her love for him, but Izuku questioned where that love was when they were younger and she had used baseball bats against him. Momo fell silent, and Izuku told her to leave his room. Ignoring his request, Momo crawled closer to him. Izuku prepared to unleash his power, warning her to stay away. Momo continued to approach, prompting Izuku to threaten her with his abilities, making it clear he wouldn't hesitate to act if she got any closer. Realizing the seriousness of his words, Momo paused. Izuku insisted she should leave if she cared about her well-being. Momo stood up from the bed, but instead of leaving, she pushed Izuku back down and sat on him. He demanded she get off, but she locked his arms with her legs, declaring her intention to show him her affection. With her hands on his face, she leaned in for a kiss, but Izuku was unable to move, trapped by her grip. Just as Momo was about to kiss him, Rin intervened, grabbing Momo by the hair and pulling her away. Izuku quickly sat up, relieved to see Rin. She checked on him, asking if Momo had harmed him. Izuku reassured her that he was fine. Momo stood up, and Rin summoned her axe, demanding to know how Momo had entered the room. Izuku explained that Momo had used her quirk to create a key and trespass. Rin pointed out that Momo had committed an offense, and Izuku could press charges if he wished. Momo turned pale at the thought, begging Izuku not to take action, fearing it would ruin her dreams. Rin reminded her that she should have considered the consequences before entering his room. Momo, frustrated, snapped at Rin, claiming she had no right to interfere. Rin countered that she was Izuku's sister and had supported him after what Momo had done. Momo insisted that Izuku loved them all, but he firmly rejected her, stating he would never feel that way about her or anyone else from their class. Momo tried to argue, but Rin reiterated that Izuku had made his feelings clear and that she needed to leave. In a fit of anger, Momo insulted Rin, boasting about her appearance. Rin felt the sting of those words, recalling past bullying, which only fueled Izuku's anger towards Momo for hurting his sister. In a surprising turn, Izuku hugged Momo, but as he tightened his grip, she winced in discomfort. He made it clear that he would not tolerate her disrespect towards Rin. Momo fainted from the pressure, and Izuku let her fall to the floor. He then embraced Rin, telling her she was perfect just the way she was. Rin returned the hug, grateful for his support. They turned their attention to Momo, who lay unconscious. Izuku decided to take action, asking Rin to open the window. Once she did, he woke Momo and, without hesitation, pushed her out of the window. Feeling satisfied, he announced his intention to grab something to eat, and Rin decided to join him. As they made their way to the kitchen, they discussed 𝐒𝐮𝐽's condition, learning he was still on life support. Arriving in the kitchen, they found it empty and quickly grabbed some food before heading back to Izuku's room. Rin prepared to leave, reminding Izuku to take care of himself, to which he promised he would. Just as he settled down to eat, a knock interrupted him. When he opened the door, he found his mother, Inko, wanting to talk. He slammed the door in her face, asserting that he wanted nothing to do with her or her friends. Inko pleaded for a chance to make things right, but Izuku remained firm, threatening to press charges for harassment if she didn't leave. Hearing this, Inko quickly departed. Afterward, Izuku checked on Ichika, finding him still on life support. Shifuyu informed him that Ichika's recovery was uncertain and urged him to rest, as he had also taken significant hits. Izuku nodded and returned to his room, but he overheard Hooky and the other girls discussing their plans to confront 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐽. He approached them, using a cane to walk, and expressed his concern for their safety. They were surprised by his presence, and Charlotte asked how he was feeling. Izuku admitted he was better but still recovering. Laura suggested he rest, but he was curious about their mission. Cecilia acknowledged that he had overheard their conversation and they promised to be careful. Izuku assured them he wouldn't stop them but urged caution before returning to his room. After their battle with 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐽, the girls faced consequences for leaving without permission. The next day, Izuku felt rejuvenated, and his 𝗟𝗶𝐻𝐸 had been repaired, not by 𝗃𝐵, whom he didn't trust, but by engineers from his company. During breakfast, he and his class taught the girls from 1A and 1B how to use an IS. Izuku stood in front of Izumi, Ochako, Momo, Itsuka, and Reiko, who were all wearing tight IS suits. Itsuka complained about the discomfort, and Izuku reassured her that they would get used to it. Kinoko questioned the necessity of physical measurements for the suits, and Izuku apologized, explaining it was part of the process. In a flashback, he recalled being told by Shifuyu that he needed to take measurements of the girls for their suits. He had hesitated but ultimately complied, entering the girls' locker room to fulfill his duty. Now, the focus would be on 1B since the number of girls is smaller. Then in 1A, Izuku looked around and wondered who would step forward first. Itsuka took the initiative and approached him. Izuku acknowledged her, noting her quirk, Big Fist. He asked her not to be upset about what would happen next. He began to measure Itsuka's body with a tape measure, recording her measurements. He apologized for the situation, and as he finished, he noted that he was done and moved on to the next girl. One by one, Izuku completed the measurements for all the girls from both classes. Although he felt a bit uncomfortable, he pushed through. After finishing, Setsuna smirked and asked who he thought had the biggest BRSS. Izuku pointed at Momo and jokingly referred to her as the porcelain beach. Kyoka inquired about the size, and Izuku stated it was 88 centimeters. Momo proudly claimed that she had the biggest BRSTS in the world, which made Izuku laugh. Mina wanted to know what was so funny, and Izuku explained that Momo's belief was amusing. Tsuyu pointed out that Momo indeed had the largest measurement among them, but Izuku mentioned he had met girls with larger sizes. As they moved on, Izuku instructed the girls to enter the IS for training. Izumi was the first to step up, using her telekinesis to levitate into the pilot chamber. Izuku told her to stop in front of him and 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐽 with the others. Izumi complied, expressing how difficult it was to move in the mech. Ochako followed suit, using her quirk to float to the pilot chamber and mimicking Izumi's movements. Izuku praised her and instructed her to 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐽 with Momo. Momo felt a pang of disappointment when Izuku used her last name instead of a more familiar term. She created a pole to lift herself into the mech and began to walk like the others. Izuku then directed her to 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐽 with Itsuka and then Kinoko. When Itsuka expressed her concern about getting into the mech without a ladder, Izuku assured her there was no need for one and summoned 𝗟𝗶𝐻𝐸 to assist. He lifted Itsuka in a bridal style, surprising the other girls. After a time skip, thanks to Kurumi, Izuku and his class finished teaching the girls from both classes how to use the IS. That night, food arrived, and everyone began to eat. Izuku sat with Charlotte on one side and Laura on the other, while the girls from 1A glared at them, but Charlotte and Laura remained unfazed. Once they finished eating, everyone returned to their rooms, but Izuku stopped Laura to ask if she could sleep with him that night. He explained that he felt uneasy after an incident with Momo the previous day. Shifuyu agreed, and Izuku carried Laura to his room. Laura, blushing, questioned why he wanted her to sleep with him instead of Charlotte. Izuku explained that he had already shared a bed with Charlotte at the academy and that Laura was also his girlfriend. He needed someone with him after the previous day's events. Laura became upset upon hearing about Momo, grabbing her knife in anger. Izuku quickly intervened, taking the knife from her and urging her not to act rashly. He reassured her that he would handle the situation himself. Meanwhile, Ichika was on a rock top with Hooky, preparing to kiss her when he felt something metallic aimed at his head. He opened his eyes to see Cecilia's drone hovering dangerously close. Ichika and Hooky quickly fled, with Rin and Cecilia in pursuit. Rin wondered why her feelings for Ichika seemed to be fading. The next day, Yue packed their belongings and gathered in front of the jet. Nizu expressed gratitude to Shifuyu for the invitation. Suddenly, 1A, along with All Might and Magnet, attempted to take Izuku back with them. Izuku firmly declared he wasn't going back, asserting his identity as a Midoriya, not a Yagi. The 1A girls and boys insisted that he belonged with them, but Izuku stood his ground, stating his place was at the IS Academy. Charlotte and Laura defended him, insisting he wouldn't comply with their demands. All Might proclaimed his authority as Izuku's father, but Shifuyu warned him to back off. Tensions escalated as Shifuyu drew a sword, challenging All Might. Izuku chuckled, reminding them that IS pilots held more power and rank than heroes, leaving everyone in a stunned silence. Izuku looked at Toshinori, expressing his frustration about the use of his hero image in the context of an IS pilot. Magnet reassured Izuku, reminding him that they were family and that his father was acting for his own benefit. Izumi agreed, urging them to return home. Izuku turned to Orimura-sensei, seeking guidance. Shifuyu responded affirmatively when Izuku asked if he could fight back against being held against his will, prompting a smirk from him as he summoned 𝗟𝗶𝗸, albeit without the proper gauntlet. He aimed his proton cannons at Toshinori, challenging him with a bold statement. Nizu intervened, instructing All Might to release Izuku, and despite All Might's protests, Nizu insisted it was an order. Once freed, Izuku, Ichika, Maya, and the other girls deactivated their IS. Nizu apologized to Izuku, who reassured him that nothing bad had occurred. Nizu then mentioned the upcoming sports festival and inquired if Izuku would attend. Izuku confirmed he would come to watch and expressed his intention to offer internships to students from the support course, hinting at future opportunities for them. Nizu appreciated Izuku's response but requested that he also assist with security. Shifuyu permitted Izuku to go, reminding him to stay focused on his studies to avoid serious consequences. Izuku promised he would. Nizu then asked if Izuku had a place to stay, to which Inko offered their home, stating they had ample space. Izumi added that there was a new room available for him. Momo suggested that Izuku could stay at her family mansion, which also had plenty of rooms. However, Izuku declined, insisting he would return to his own house. Nizu asked for the location of Izuku's house. Izuku provided the address, and upon hearing it, the girls from Class 1A reacted. Katsumi reminded Izuku that it was the house he had mentioned when they talked about living together in the future. Shoka recalled that he had made that promise when they were younger. Izuku, however, reflected on the past, stating that the promise, along with the one about marrying them, had faded away, much like his lost arm. Momo attempted to interject, but Izuku cut her off, urging her to find happiness in the present. Izuku chose not to pursue any charges for the incident that occurred 2 days prior. However, he felt that his parents might endure more consequences than he would. They had always been kind, unlike someone he considered spoiled. Momo began to cry, prompting Izuku to dismiss her tears, suggesting they were insincere. He then handed Toshinori a piece of paper, which raised Toshinori's curiosity. Izuku informed Toshinori that it was a restraining order, preventing him from coming closer than 30 meters. He warned Toshinori not to attempt contacting the Hero Commission, as it would not be effective in this situation. Additionally, he stated that Class 1A and Inko were not permitted near his home, while Class 1B was always welcome. Itsuka expressed her gratitude but had a question. She asked if Izuku could train her, having witnessed his impressive skills. Izuku readily agreed, and 𝗟𝗏𝗧𝗟𝗘 also requested to be trained. Izuku confirmed that Class 1B was welcome at his house. Ochako interjected, feeling it was unfair that they were not receiving help as well. Izuku countered by questioning the fairness of her actions, implying that her longing for training stemmed from a fear of revealing weaknesses to Class 1B. Shoto insisted that they had no weaknesses, but Izuku reminded them of the contents of his notebook, which contained details about their quirks and vulnerabilities. The members of Class 1A paled at the sight of the notebook. Mina protested, while Tenya accused Izuku of aiding the enemy. Izuku pointed out that they were calling Class 1B enemies, despite their shared goal of becoming heroes. He expressed disbelief at how Tensei managed to handle them. As UA boarded the jet to depart, Izuku felt relieved that they were finally leaving. He began to pack his belongings in preparation for their return to the academy. After finishing, he approached the door, only to find Rin waiting for him. Rin pushed Izuku back into the room and closed the door. She wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed him on the lips, leaving Izuku in shock. After they parted, Rin looked at him, her expression earnest. Izuku felt confused and asked why she had done that. Rin explained that her feelings for 𝐒𝐮𝐽 had faded, and she was beginning to develop feelings for him. She wanted to prove to Charlotte and Laura that she was worthy of being part of the 𝐼𝐼𝐬. Rin kissed Izuku again, and he kissed her back, secretly harboring a crush on her but having previously held back due to her feelings for 𝐒𝐮𝐽. Meanwhile, the Yagi family arrived home, and Inko began cleaning Izuku's new room, which was now the largest in the house. The room featured a PlayStation 5, All Might merchandise, a massive TV, and a large bed. In the future, Izuku and 𝐒𝐮𝐽 found themselves running from Hookie, Cecilia, Rin, Charlotte, Laura, May, Melissa, Kanzashi, and Tadanashi. 𝐒𝐮𝐽 noted that the girls were angry with them for going on a trip without them and wondered what they should do. Izuku, confident, mentioned he had a plan and suggested they head to his room. They dashed into Izuku's room, followed closely by the girls. Hookie called out for them to come outside, assuring them they wouldn't be harmed too badly. Izuku, however, was skeptical and declared he would release the Kraken. He held Eri in his arms, who smiled at the girls and pleaded with them not to hurt her papa and uncle 𝐒𝐮𝐽. The girls, charmed by Eri's cuteness, deactivated their weapons and began to play with her. Izuku was sleeping in his dorm room when he was suddenly jolted awake by a foot in his face. He looked up to see a pair of feet at the end of his bed. Laura had woken up and asked if it was morning already. Surprised to see her there again, Izuku acknowledged her presence. Laura stood up, wrapped in a blanket, and revealed that she was wearing her school swimsuit. She then pulled out a flyer for a summer festival and expressed her longing to go. Izuku agreed but asked her to take his hand. When she did, he playfully pulled her down so she landed on his chest. He wrapped his metal arm around her waist and gently patted her head, suggesting they enjoy the summer morning together. Laura, too embarrassed to speak, was met with a soft kiss from Izuku. Laura then asked if he had work at the company, to which Izuku replied that he had finished the day before and that his secretary, Hitoshi, would cover for him. He mentioned he planned to visit his father's grave later. Laura was surprised to learn he still visited his father's grave, and Izuku explained that he wouldn't be where he was without him. They both fell asleep again. After an hour, Izuku woke up and smiled at Laura, who was still sleeping. He reflected on how difficult his life had been but felt grateful for Laura and the others who made it worthwhile. Carefully, he moved Laura off him and began to get dressed. Laura woke up and realized he was up, and Izuku invited her to join him on his visit to his father's grave. She agreed, and they both got dressed. They grabbed some sandwiches from the fridge and headed out, taking the train to Japan. Their destination was a flower shop, where Izuku chose flowers. The shop owner recognized him and teased him about buying flowers for his appealing girlfriend, causing Laura's face to turn red. Izuku clarified that the flowers were for his father, and the owner placed a comforting hand on Izuku's shoulder, expressing understanding of his pain. Whenever someone wants to talk about it, Izuku is there. He thanked Laura, and together they exited the flower shop, heading toward the cemetery, unaware that Tenya was following them. After a few minutes of walking, they arrived at Hisashi's grave. The tombstone read, "Here lies Hisashi Midoriya, a great friend and an irreplaceable father. Izuku placed the flowers gently next to the stone. He spoke to his father, expressing pride in his accomplishments at the company. He shared how he had started as a janitor and worked his way up to become the CEO, just like Hisashi. Surrounded by supportive friends and appealing girlfriends, he felt a mix of joy and sorrow. Falling to his knees, he wished Hisashi could see him now, tears streaming down his face as he expressed how much he missed their time together, from playing baseball to fishing. Laura knelt beside him, offering a comforting hug and acknowledging the great man Hisashi was. After a few moments of shared grief, Izuku rose, wiping his tears away. Laura asked if he felt better, to which he replied affirmatively, grateful for her presence. Suddenly, Tenya appeared, confronting them. He reprimanded Izuku for being at the grave, insisting that Hisashi was a villain who deserved his fate. Tenya ordered Izuku to abandon his company and relationships, suggesting he return to his childhood friends and become a stay-at-home husband while they pursued heroism. Izuku firmly rejected Tenya's commands, asserting his independence. Tenya threatened him, and in a moment of anger, he used his quirk to damage Hisashi's tombstone. Laura realized the situation was escalating. Izuku, fueled by emotion, grabbed Tenya by the collar and retaliated, landing a series of punches that left Tenya with a swollen face. He paused only when Laura placed a hand on his shoulder, urging him to stop. Izuku looked at Tenya, still not satisfied. He transformed his arm into a cannon and unleashed a powerful blast aimed at Tenya's jewelry, ensuring he would no longer be a threat. Afterward, Izuku and Laura left, but not before tossing Tenya aside near a dumpster. Laura questioned Izuku's actions, and he explained that he wanted to prevent Tenya from passing on his traits to future generations. Laura acknowledged the harshness but agreed that it was deserved. Time passed, and Izuku, along with Ichika, Hooky, Cecilia, Rin, Charlotte, and Laura, enjoyed a festival. Ichika and Hooky wondered where Izuku had gone after they won a plush toy for Laura. They followed the sound of singing, which led them to a surprising sight. Izuku was helping a performer who painted himself in silver. Izuku climbed onto a chair, picked up a guitar he had bought, and began to sing. The crowd gathered, captivated by his performance. As he sang about a ship and its adventures, the audience clapped enthusiastically, tossing money into the performer's hat. The performer thanked Izuku for his help, and Izuku returned to his friends, who were astonished by his talent. They bombarded him with questions, curious about when he had learned to sing. Izuku explained that he had been singing since childhood, but his past experiences had made him hesitant to share that part of himself. As he remembered, his right hand began to shake, prompting Rin to notice. She asked for a moment alone with him, and they stepped away from the crowd. Rin gently took Izuku's shaking hand, expressing concern for his well-being. She reassured him that he was not alone and could always confide in them when he felt down. Izuku embraced Rin, grateful for her support. They shared a moment of closeness, eyes meeting in the moonlight. Meanwhile, Tenya was found and rushed to the hospital, where the doctor informed that he would need surgery for his broken nose and dental work. However, the doctor regrettably mentioned that Tenya would not regain his ability to have children. The voltage was too high. The girls from Class 1A fell to their knees, clutching their chests. Shoto looked at Shoka, concerned, as she expressed the immense pain she felt. Momo added that it felt like someone had stabbed her with a knife. Meanwhile, Izuku expressed his gratitude to Rin, who reassured him that she was there for him. She jumped onto his back, suggesting they replace the ugly memories with happy new ones. Izuku hesitated, but Rin assured him they could explain that she had sprained her ankle. They returned to their friends, and fortunately, everyone accepted Rin's story, allowing them to enjoy the fireworks. Izuku began to wake from his sleep, realizing he was locked in place. Charlotte was on top of him, with Laura to his right and Rin to his left, all three hugging him tightly. He thought to himself that he was the luckiest guy in the world to have them as his girlfriends. Gently, he extricated himself from their embrace and started making breakfast for everyone. As he prepared the meal, he heard footsteps and saw the three girls waking up, all of them in their cat pajamas. The aroma of breakfast filled the air, and their mouths watered in anticipation. Izuku announced that breakfast was ready, and they expressed their gratitude. As they took their first bites, they felt as if they were in heaven. Charlotte exclaimed her delight, while Laura jokingly said she would do anything for his food. Rin added that even her parents' cooking couldn't compare to his. Suddenly, the artificial house assistant chimed in, alerting Izuku to the presence of visitors outside. When he inquired who they were, the assistant informed him it was Toshinori Yagi, Inko Yagi, and the entire Class 1A from UA. Izuku sighed, wondering when they would stop bothering him. Laura commented that judging by their persistence, it would be never. After getting dressed, Izuku walked outside to confront his past. He asked what they wanted, and the girls from Class 1A blushed at the sight of his muscular physique. Toshinori requested to be let in for a conversation, but Izuku firmly refused, reiterating that they were not welcome. Inko pleaded to talk, but Izuku insisted they could speak from outside. Katsuki, frustrated, threatened to blow the door apart if Izuku didn't let them in. Unfazed, Izuku calmly pointed out that such actions would only provide him with evidence for legal action against Katsuki for destruction of property, trespassing, and bullying. Katsuki fell silent, realizing the implications of his threats. Izuku suggested they leave, as he was enjoying breakfast with his girlfriends. Katsumi chimed in, expressing her belief that she should be with him instead of the others. Izuku coldly replied that he would not date any of them, even if they were the last girls on Earth. Toshinori, now embodying all might, demanded that Izuku return to them and erase everything about the past. Izuku attempted to reason with him, activating the defense system of his house. Weapons emerged from the fence, aiming at Class 1A, All Might, and Inko. Inko was taken aback, questioning where the weapons had come from. Izuku explained that as the CEO of a successful company, it was reasonable to have security measures in place. He warned them to leave before he commanded the weapons to fire, as he wanted to enjoy breakfast with his girlfriends. Izumi protested, claiming that cheating was wrong. The other girls from Class 1A echoed her sentiment. Izuku retorted that Izumi's very existence was a result of cheating, recalling a painful truth about his mother. Inko was left speechless, realizing that her past actions had been exposed. Turning away, Izuku decided to leave the confrontation behind. Katsuki, having had enough, used his quirk to leap over the fence and charge at Izuku. Izuku calmly activated a quirk-neutralizing bullet, which struck Katsuki in the leg, rendering his powers useless. Katsuki fell to the ground, stunned. As he attempted to rise again, he found he could not use his abilities. Izuku explained that he had neutralized Katsuki's quirk for a week, warning him to leave before he permanently lost it. Fearful of the consequences, Katsuki and the others quickly retreated. Once inside, Izuku commanded the house to lower the weapons and returned to finish his breakfast. The next day, the girls from Class 1A arrived at his house with luggage, claiming they were moving in because of a promise Izuku had made when they were younger. However, Izuku, Charlotte, Laura, and Rin activated their IS, warning the girls that they would face dire consequences if they did not leave. As the days passed, the anticipation for the sport festival grew. On the day of the event, Izuku donned a normal suit, while Charlotte, Laura, and Rin were dressed in their festival attire. They made their way through the crowd, with Izuku holding hands with all three to ensure they wouldn't get lost. Many women envied the trio for being with him, while some men whistled at Charlotte. Noticing Laura and Rin's sadness over not being as developed as Charlotte, Izuku paused. He pulled Laura in for a kiss, surprising her, but she soon reciprocated. He did the same with Rin, declaring that he loved them just the way they were, regardless of their appearances. The girls beamed with happiness and embraced him, while onlookers applauded the heartfelt moment. Laura found herself daydreaming about a future with Izuku, imagining their wedding day. In her fantasy, he told her how appealing she was, and she shyly asked him to put her down, feeling embarrassed. He insisted on carrying his bride, wanting to cherish every moment with her. However, the daydream was interrupted when Izuku called her name, waking her from her reverie. Confused, she asked what had happened, and he explained that she had fallen asleep after his declaration of love, and he had carried her to the spectator seats. The festival was about to begin. As midnight struck, every male in the vicinity blushed at the sight of midnight. However, Izuku's attention was focused elsewhere, on his girlfriend, Charlotte. She noticed his gaze and asked why he wasn't looking at midnight. Izuku expressed his loyalty, assuring her that he wouldn't look at any other girls. Midnight observed the crowd, feeling a pang of hurt that Izuku wasn't looking at her but also felt a sense of pride in his loyalty. With a determined spirit, Midnight announced the start of the festival. After a time skip, the festival concluded, and a student from the support course caught Izuku's attention, Maya Yamada. At that moment, Izuku and his girlfriends were visiting his father's grave, bringing flowers to honor him. To ensure safety, Izuku had set up an electric fence and weapons around the grave, preventing any unwanted disturbances. Using his access card, he entered the fenced area with Charlotte, Laura, and Rin. Izuku placed the flowers on the grave, feeling a deep sadness as he spoke to his father, wishing he could share moments like fishing and playing baseball with him. His girlfriends offered their respects, expressing how wonderful they thought he was. Izuku, still sorrowful, wished his father could see the life he was living now. As rain began to fall, he suggested they head home, prompting Charlotte to agree before the rain intensified. Unbeknownst to them, Hisashi's ghost manifested at the grave, silently urging the girls to take care of his son and mend his broken heart. In the future, during Easter, Izuku noticed Charlotte excitedly proclaiming that the Easter Bunny had come to wish him a happy holiday. He leaned in to kiss her affectionately before lifting her in a bridal carry toward his room, where sounds of joy echoed. Izuku was on a jet heading to 𝐼, where he served as the CEO of Midoriya Industries, a highly successful company. Seated beside him were Charlotte and Laura, with Rin in front. Upon landing, they donned casual clothes to conceal their identities. Izuku informed them that a lady outside was aware of their presence and promised not to create a scene, but they still needed to be cautious. After settling into their hotel room, Izuku mentioned he needed to meet with David to discuss an important matter regarding his arm. Later, in David's laboratory, Izuku stood shirtless as David examined his right arm, expressing amazement at its condition. David acknowledged the challenges Izuku faced, including the loss of his real arm and the pain of losing his father, offering his condolences. Melissa, David's daughter, approached Izuku, gently touching his scars, but he stopped her, not wanting her to feel burdened by his pain. David suggested they enjoy the surroundings, and Melissa offered to show them around. As they walked, the door opened to reveal All Might, Magnet, and Izumi. All Might greeted David enthusiastically, but David reminded him to address him formally. Izumi attempted to apologize for past mistakes, but David questioned their sincerity, frustrated by their attempts to force Izuku into their lives. Inko defended Izuku, claiming he didn't hate them, but David was skeptical and chose to leave with Sam. Meanwhile, Melissa placed a helmet on Izuku's head, showcasing its advanced features. Izuku was puzzled by the number of screens it had. As they explored, he noticed a boy crying because his parents couldn't afford a robot. Moved by the scene, Izuku used his black credit card to purchase the robot for the boy. He approached the child, presenting the gift, which brought a smile to the boy's face. The boy's mother expressed their gratitude, but Izuku insisted it was no trouble, recalling a similar moment with his father years ago. As the family left, the boy waved goodbye, and Melissa thought to herself that while Izuku might not be a traditional hero, he certainly had the heart of one. Charlotte, Laura, and Rin noticed Melissa's admiration for Izuku and decided to discuss it with her later. Suddenly, Ochako, Izumi, Kyoka, and Momo appeared, commenting on Izuku's apparent enjoyment. Izuku chose to ignore them, prompting Izumi to ask why he was ignoring them. Izuku, Charlotte, Laura, Rin, and Melissa continued their exploration of the island. Momo attempted to hug Izuku, but he accidentally elbowed her in the stomach. The impact caused her to kneel down, holding her abdomen. Izuku and his girlfriends, along with Melissa, decided to find something to eat. Fortunately, Izuku had his black and platinum credit card, so they faced no issues with money. Some girls tried to approach Izuku to sit with him, but they quickly retreated after sensing the intimidating presence of Charlotte, Laura, and Rin. The same thing happened with Denki and Minoru when Izuku pointed his cannon at them for attempting to touch Melissa. Suddenly, an explosion echoed in the distance, prompting them to investigate. Upon arrival, they wished they hadn't come. The Mutt twins and Winterfresh twins were there, along with Izumi and the others, but Momo was absent, resting in her room after the earlier incident with Izuku. Izumi had registered to fight the robots and managed to last 16 seconds. Izuku, however, was hesitant to try. Katsuki challenged him, questioning if he was scared. In response, Izuku decided to register and give it a shot. When the woman in charge signaled the start, Izuku simply pressed a button on his watch, causing the robots to self-destruct. The woman was astonished, asking if he had really done that. Izuku confirmed it and explained that it was no big deal, as he had just reprogrammed the robots. Charlotte remarked on how simple it was, while Laura noted that it only took a button press. Rin expressed curiosity about Izuku's intelligence, to which he humbly replied that he couldn't take all the credit, as his employees had contributed as well. Time passed, and Izuku and his girlfriends changed into formal attire. Laura expressed her uncertainty about wearing heels for the first time. Charlotte handed her a pair of shoes, and Laura nervously tried them on. As she attempted to walk, she nearly stumbled, but Izuku caught her just in time. Blushing, Laura felt embarrassed, and Izuku reassured her that it was fine to struggle with the shoes, offering his arm for support as they headed toward the party. Later, Wolfram was arrested after Izuku took control of the security system, immobilizing him and his men. The police soon arrived to take the villains away. An officer thanked Izuku for his assistance, to which he modestly replied that it was no trouble at all. Izuku then spotted Sam trying to escape and quickly tackled him to the ground, revealing evidence that implicated Sam in orchestrating the attack. This was part of Sam's plan to become wealthy and win Melissa's affection, following David's earlier failed attempts to reclaim his invention. The officers took Sam away, and Izuku found himself on stage. Izumi wondered what her brother was doing, while Katsuki anticipated that Izuku would embarrass himself. Izuku addressed the audience, announcing that the next song was dedicated to the girl who had stolen his heart, Charlotte Dunois. He began to sing, surprising everyone from Class 1A. As he sang, Charlotte watched him with admiration, captivated by his emerald eyes. Izuku, in turn, was drawn to her amethyst eyes. He gently placed his hands on her cheeks and leaned in to kiss her, and Charlotte responded by wrapping her arms around his neck. The crowd erupted in applause and "us" at the sweet moment. After returning to the stage, Izuku announced that the next song was dedicated to Laura, another appealing girl who had also captured his heart. Everyone turned their attention to Laura, who was blushing. The girls from Class 1A shot her glances filled with envy and disdain, their minds racing with thoughts of how they might take revenge on the three who had wronged them. Meanwhile, Izuku began to play a song on the piano. He sang about the beauty he saw in her, describing how her eyes sparkled like stars and how her hair fell perfectly without effort. He expressed his admiration, wishing she could see herself through his eyes. As he sang, he invited Laura to join him at the piano. She walked over and took a seat beside him, feeling a mix of nerves and excitement. Izuku continued to sing, sharing his feelings about her smile and how it could light up the world. He reassured her that she was perfect just as she was, and he encouraged her not to let others' judgments affect her self-worth. He gently kissed her and she wrapped her arms around his neck, returning the gesture. Afterward, Izuku announced that the next song was dedicated to his childhood friend, Rin, who had also captured his heart. He sang about her beauty and talent, expressing his determination to win her affection. He conveyed that this was more than just a crush, it was a deep connection. As he sang, he approached Rin and embraced her, sharing a kiss that spoke volumes of his feelings for her. Rin responded, and the moment felt electric. Later, Izuku found himself dancing with Melissa. Meanwhile, Charlotte, Laura, and Rin conspired to help Melissa confess her feelings for him. They playfully nudged the two closer together on the dance floor, where Izuku and Melissa moved gracefully to the soft music. The dim lighting created an NTMT atmosphere, and Melissa felt a surge of emotions bubbling within her. She had long harbored a crush on Izuku, and tonight seemed like the perfect opportunity to reveal her feelings. As the song reached its conclusion, Izuku drew her close, their bodies fitting together seamlessly. Looking into his eyes, Melissa felt her heart race. Without hesitation, she leaned in and kissed him, pouring her emotions into the moment. Izuku was momentarily surprised, but warmth and happiness quickly enveloped him as he embraced her, deepening the kiss. When they finally pulled apart, both were flushed with emotion, and Izuku smiled at her. Melissa, feeling lighter than ever, expressed that she had been waiting for the right moment to share her feelings. As they continued to dance, filled with love and happiness, Izuku and Melissa realized that this night would be unforgettable. However, some girls from Class 1A were not pleased and devised a plan. Knowing there were many people around, they believed Izuku would be unable to refuse them. Their first step was to trap Charlotte, Laura, Rin, and Melissa in the bathroom. Momo approached Izuku and asked him to dance. Everyone watched as the CEO of Midoriya Industries and the daughter of the Yaoyorozu family took the floor together. Izuku wanted nothing more than to refuse her, but he understood that doing so would cause trouble for her parents. Reluctantly, he agreed to dance with her for their sake. He placed his hands on Momo's waist, and they began to move together. The other girls from Class 1A, inspired by Melissa, pushed Izuku and Momo closer. Frustration bubbled within Izuku as he saw their attempts to bring Momo nearer to him. Suddenly, Momo grabbed Izuku by the collar and leaned in, catching him off guard. He struggled to break free, but she held him firmly, and the other girls continued to push him toward her. After Momo released him, Izuku's eyes blazed with anger. How could they try something like that? To avoid revealing his true feelings, he picked up Momo and headed toward her hotel room. In the privacy of her room, Momo expressed her surprise at Izuku's actions, feeling overwhelmed by his intensity. Izuku, caught up in the moment, apologized, acknowledging how good it felt to be close to her. Momo blushed, scolding him for his behavior, but deep down she found herself enjoying the thrill of the encounter. Reality hit when Izuku abruptly dropped Momo to the ground, causing her to cry out in surprise. He then confronted her about trying to make him dance and kiss her, demanding to know if she thought he would forgive her actions. Izuku felt a rush of frustration as he called her parents to inform them of what had transpired, leaving Momo in her room, bruised by the emotional turmoil. Later, Izuku found himself watching Ichika battle Rin alongside Shifuyu Orimura and Maya Yamada. For a while, it seemed Ichika had the upper hand, but Izuku noted that he was not paying attention to his energy shield. Maya commented on Ichika's demps in the fight, but Izuku disagreed, believing Ichika was being reckless. After Ichika lost, he and Izuku analyzed the battle to understand what went wrong. Ichika lamented how close he had come to victory, realizing he needed to manage his energy better. Suddenly, hands covered their eyes, and a voice playfully announced their surprise. When the hands were removed, they turned to find a girl with short blue hair and red eyes smiling at them. Izuku recognized her as Tatanashi Sarashiki, the student council president. Ichika asked her who she was, but she quickly left, warning them that they would be in trouble if they didn't hurry. Realizing the time, they rushed to class, only to be scolded by Miss Orimura. During a meeting, Ichika sighed as Tatanashi delivered her speech. Ichika suggested various ideas for class entertainment, but they were all declined. Izuku humorously remarked that it was either that or jumping out of a window, prompting confusion among the girls. One student boldly declared that Ichika and Izuku were their properties, which only irritated Ichika further. As the discussion continued, Laura proposed the idea of a maid cafe, which sparked interest among the students. Izuku and Ichika were suggested to be butlers or kitchen workers, leaving them both shocked. Despite their reluctance, the class agreed, and plans for the cafe began to take shape. Later, as they left the room, Ichika checked the time and realized they were late for special training. They rushed out, only to be greeted by a cheerful voice, signaling the start of another adventure. They turned and saw Tatanashi walking toward them. Ichika recognized her as the student council president, while Izuku confirmed her identity as Tatanashi Sarashiki. Tatanashi encouraged them to drop the formalities and just call her Tatanashi. Ichika, confused, asked what she wanted, and Izuku noted that her visit wasn't just a casual greeting. Tatanashi revealed that she would be their IS coach for a while, which surprised 𝐿𝐼𝐻𝐬. He questioned the sudden decision, pointing out that they already had enough coaches. Izuku reminded him that there was always room for improvement. Tadanashi agreed, stating that they needed to acknowledge their weaknesses. 𝐼𝐻𝐬 felt anger rise within him, insisting that he wasn't weak. Tadanashi bluntly stated that he was indeed weak, but acknowledged that Izuku was stronger. 𝐼𝐻𝐬 turned to face Tadanashi as she pointed her fan at him, declaring that she would train them both to improve. 𝐼𝐻𝐬 reluctantly accepted the challenge, stating that if they lost, they would follow her orders. Izuku protested, not wanting to be dragged into 𝐼𝐻𝐬's mess. In a dojo, dressed in traditional clothing, the floor transformed into a green square. Tadanashi instructed them that if they could knock her to the ground even once, they would win. 𝐼𝐻𝐬 was taken aback, while Izuku realized that it wouldn't matter if they lost repeatedly. Tadanashi confirmed this, adding that if she incapacitated them, she would win. 𝐼𝐻𝐬 felt underestimated, while Izuku pointed out that 𝐼𝐻𝐬 often fought recklessly and lacked strategy. Tadanashi reassured them that she didn't underestimate either of them and was confident in her victory. 𝐻𝐻𝐬 took a deep breath, stepping closer and declaring that he wouldn't hold back. Tadanashi welcomed the challenge. Later, 𝐻𝐻𝐬 struggled against Tadanashi, while Izuku managed to pin her down but still sought her assistance. In the infirmary, Tadanashi playfully pulled Izuku onto her lap after 𝐻𝐻𝐬 woke up. Laura entered and witnessed the scene, smiling at first before becoming angry and preparing to attack. Tadanashi effortlessly deflected the attack with her fan. Outside, Izuku, 𝐻𝐻𝐬, and Tadanashi encountered Charlotte and Cecilia, who were stretching. Charlotte greeted them, while Cecilia mentioned a special training session with Laura in arena. Tadanashi introduced herself as 𝐻𝐻𝐬 and Izuku's exclusive coach from now on, much to Charlotte's surprise. Cecilia asked 𝐻𝐻𝐬 what was going on, and he explained that it was the result of a match they had. 𝐻𝐻𝐬 then questioned Izuku's longing to continue training with Tadanashi despite his earlier victory. Izuku expressed that he still had room for growth. Tadanashi added that this was all for 𝐻𝐻𝐬 and Izuku, and she needed their cooperation. Both Charlotte and Cecilia exchanged curious glances as Tadanashi flexed her fan, urging them to start. She instructed Charlotte and Cecilia to demonstrate a shooter flow in a circle rondo formation, leaving Izuku confused. Time passed, and both Izuku and 𝐻𝐻𝐬 rested their heads on the table, having not touched their food. Hooky checked on them, and 𝐻𝐻𝐬 admitted he was barely hanging in there, while Izuku expressed feeling terrible. Charlotte offered them tea, suggesting that if they couldn't eat, they should at least drink something. 𝐻𝐻𝐬 thanked her, and Izuku appreciated the gesture. Laura inquired about the woman, and 𝐻𝐻𝐬 explained that she had worked for the student council. Izuku mentioned that due to his secretary Hitoshi, he would be facing a similar paperwork situation. Rin chimed in, reminding 𝐻𝐻𝐬 that it was his fault for provoking her, though he noted that she didn't have to be so harsh. 𝐻𝐻𝐬 accepted his fate, while Izuku lamented being dragged into the situation. 𝐻𝐻𝐬 acknowledged Tadanashi's words about their weaknesses, admitting he needed to improve quickly. Izuku agreed, and Charlotte remarked that a boy who was trying his best was admirable. Hooky added her support, albeit shyly. As the girls debated over where Izuku should sleep, 𝐻𝐻𝐬 fell asleep at the table. Izuku, using his watch, sent his AI system to summon a drone to take him to his room, then did the same for 𝐻𝐻𝐬. After some time, Izuku reflected on the day's work and study. Although they didn't have school, he had to work at the cafe due to Laura's suggestion. Days had passed since 𝐒𝐻𝐬𝐼𝐻𝐬's capture, and Izuku was puzzled by 𝐒𝐻𝐬𝐼𝐻𝐬's belief that he would help him with the erasing quirk bullets. 𝐒𝐻𝐬𝐼𝐻𝐬 had thought that combining their abilities would make them unstoppable, but he didn't anticipate that the quirk disable sensor in Izuku's house would thwart him, leading to his capture. With evidence gathered by Uncle Mirai, 𝐒𝐻𝐬𝐼𝐻𝐬 was arrested. Izuku had also adopted a little girl named 𝐼𝐻𝐬, who was now in kindergarten with a great teacher, Uncle Nizu. Izuku and 𝐻𝐻𝐬 stood at the cafe entrance, dressed in butler outfits, while Charlotte welcomed the guests inside. Izuku expressed his discomfort with the attire, noting that it felt different from his usual work clothes, where he barely received attention. 𝐻𝐻𝐬𝐻 agreed, and just then, Rin appeared in a Chinese dress, catching their attention. Izuku questioned her outfit, and Rin explained that they were running a Chinese cafe in their class. She remarked that it was just how it was, teasing Izuku about his birthday celebration. As they conversed, a woman with autumn hair approached them, introducing herself as Makigami Reiko. She inquired about using their company's equipment for their 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐲𝐸 and 𝗟𝗶𝐻𝐸 and offered to create a more advanced arm for Izuku. Ichika hesitated, unsure about the proposal, while Izuku remained cautious, recalling his father's advice to be wary of strangers. Reiko took their hands, urging them to consider the additional armor and auxiliary thrusters she suggested. Izuku politely declined, stating that 𝗟𝗶𝐻𝐸 already had sufficient armor, and adding more would hinder his speed. And the thrusters were not compatible with it. 𝗟𝗶𝐻𝐸 was designed for both offensive and defensive capabilities. Reiko suggested that if they acted quickly, they would throw in an additional leg blade. Ichika hesitated, stating that he really didn't need it. RS informed her that the next customers were waiting for their turn. Reiko's expression shifted to one of frustration. Ichika apologized, insisting they had to leave. Izuku wished Reiko prosperity and took her hand, kissing the back of it, which made her smile and remark on his gentlemanly behavior. They departed, and Izuku thanked Takatsuki for saving them, while Ichika called her a lifesaver. Recently, people had been recommending various equipment loads for his 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐲𝐸. Izuku warned that if they thought that was tough, they should wait until those people showed up at their homes. He recalled a time when one of them arrived at his house with an equipment offer. Takatsuki reassured them, suggesting they both had a lot on their plates and could take a break. She encouraged them to look around the school. Ichika asked if she was sure, and Izuku expressed concern about adding more work for her. Takatsuki decided to give them about half an hour. Ichika agreed, and Izuku felt they couldn't refuse such an offer. Suddenly, Cecilia appeared and grabbed Ichika's hand, announcing she would accompany him. Laura then appeared and took Izuku's hand as well. Charlotte protested, claiming it was unfair. Hookie called out to Cecilia, questioning the situation. Laura insisted they should go, and they all prepared to leave. Takatsuki reminded them that they couldn't just leave the store unattended and suggested they decide with rock, paper, scissors. Izuku questioned if that was a good idea, thinking about what might happen if they showed up. The four of them glared at each other, and in the end, Cecilia won against Hookie, while Laura triumphed over Charlotte. Cecilia dragged Ichika to the music classroom, while Laura led Izuku to his room. Once there, Izuku relaxed on his bed, feeling relieved. Laura climbed on top of him and rested her head on his chest. Izuku was taken aback, asking what she was doing, but Laura silenced him with a finger to his lips, suggesting they enjoy the moment in peace. They sat together on the bed, with Izuku wrapping his arms around Laura's waist. Later, Izuku and Ichika returned, only to find Tadanashi waiting for them. Ichika was surprised to see her, while Izuku questioned her presence, wondering if she should be with her class. Tadanashi explained that she needed their help for the student council's action-packed interactive play. Ichika was confused, and Izuku echoed his surprise. Tadanashi insisted they come with her, grabbing both of their hands. Ichika protested, and Izuku stated he could walk on his own, but Tadanashi insisted there was no time to waste. Ichika hesitated, and Izuku reminded her they had work to do. In the changing room, Tadanashi instructed them to put on the provided outfits and come to the stage. Ichika questioned where she had gotten the clothes, and Tadanashi revealed the most important item, a crown, which she handed to both of them. Ichika expressed concern about not having seen the script, while Izuku wondered if it was something made on the spot. Tadanashi reassured them that the play was mostly improvised and they would provide all necessary directions, urging them to just do their thing. The scene shifted to Izuku and Ichika outside, dressed in their outfits. Izuku pinched his arm, confirming he was not dreaming and lamenting his involvement in the situation. Suddenly, all 5 girls charged at them, with Rin brandishing her sword. Izuku warned her to be careful with it, while Rin demanded the crown. Izuku questioned her reasoning, and Rin threw kunais at them, which they barely managed to dodge. Ichika exclaimed about the danger of being hit, and Izuku remarked that they should be glad it was just kunais. Tadanashi assured them that all the weapons were harmless props, but Ichika expressed doubt. Izuku scoffed, claiming that if the weapons were harmless, he was the king of Norvegia. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 grabbed a metal candle holder, while Izuku pulled out a telescopic metal rod, and they blocked some of the incoming weapons. Rin attacked again, disarming them both, and nearly landed a kick on them, but they dodged just in time. Izuku questioned Rin's thinking, while 𝐒𝐮𝐬 pointed out her glass slippers. Rin reassured them that they were made of tempered glass, but Izuku cautioned that it was still dangerous. Suddenly, a sniper bullet whizzed by, followed by another and another. Rin called out to them and they took cover. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 speculated that it must be Cecilia, and when a bullet hit his crown, Izuku confirmed it was definitely her. He thought about how to expose her cover, realizing she was from England. Izuku then shouted that English tea was terrible, provoking a reaction from Cecilia, who angrily declared that he should not insult their tea culture. Izuku seized the opportunity to shoot a purple spark at Cecilia, momentarily stunning her and allowing him and 𝐒𝐮𝐬 to escape. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 expressed disbelief at the chaos of the play, while Izuku explained that they were the prey and the girls were the predators. Cecilia recovered from the shock and vowed to find them. Cecilia soon located them and began firing, destroying their cover. Charlotte emerged from the bushes, calling for Izuku to follow her. Izuku was surprised to see her and agreed that it was better than staying where they were. They both jumped from the balcony, and Charlotte protected them with a shield. Izuku thanked her, while 𝐒𝐮𝐬 expressed gratitude as well. Charlotte warned them that the girls were right behind them and urged them to run. As they prepared to leave, Charlotte asked if they could leave the crowns behind. Izuku, disliking the crown, handed it over, and 𝐒𝐮𝐬 agreed as well. Just as they were about to remove the crowns, Tadanashi's voice echoed, reminding them that for princes, their country meant everything, and losing their crowns would be a serious matter. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 and Izuku felt a shock coursing through their bodies, causing them to collapse. Tadanashi commented on their dedication to their country, lamenting their plight. They managed to get back on their feet, with Izuku exclaiming in frustration, while 𝐒𝐮𝐬 acknowledged the situation. Izuku apologized to Charlotte, stating that it was a no. Charlotte was concerned, and just then, Rin and Cecilia appeared, demanding they stay still. They brandished their weapons, and 𝐒𝐮𝐬 used the shield for defense. Izuku unleashed a sonic slice, causing debris to fly and forcing Rin and Cecilia to dodge, giving them a moment to escape. However, Rin managed to throw her sword, breaking 𝐒𝐮𝐬's shield and causing them to lose their balance. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 and Charlotte fell, inadvertently dragging Izuku down with them. Charlotte called out for Izuku and 𝐒𝐮𝐬, only to realize Izuku was beneath her. Flustered, she apologized, while Izuku acknowledged the situation, recognizing the soft texture he had touched. Charlotte felt a rush of warmth to her cheeks as bullets began to rain down around them. Izuku urged them to flee, while 𝐒𝐮𝐬 called out to Charlotte to keep moving. They sprinted away, with Charlotte trailing behind, calling for them to wait. Izuku and 𝐒𝐮𝐬 dashed up the stairs until they reached the top, where 𝐒𝐮𝐬 declared they were far enough away. Izuku reminded 𝐒𝐮𝐬 that they were talking about their classmates, just as a shadow emerged in the darkness. The lights flickered on, revealing Laura, brandishing 2 knives. She announced that she had been waiting for them. Izuku reacted with dismay as Laura took a fighting stance, declaring her intention to claim their crowns. She charged at them, swinging her knives, prompting Izuku to warn her to be careful. Just then, a bullet from a turret whizzed past them. Izuku instinctively shielded Laura with his body, while 𝐒𝐮𝐬 ducked just in time to avoid being hit. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 expressed the gravity of their situation, and Izuku, exasperated, shouted in agreement. Another bullet was fired, and Izuku quickly hoisted Laura onto his shoulder as they made their escape, with 𝐒𝐮𝐬 following closely behind. They leaped over an obstacle and used a cable to flee. Once they landed safely, Izuku checked on Laura, ensuring she was all right. She confirmed her well-being, and 𝐒𝐮𝐬 suggested they leave her to hide. Hooky appeared, calling for Izuku and 𝐒𝐮𝐬 to follow her to safety. They climbed a ladder, but Hooky soon realized that both boys were below her. She warned them not to look up, to which Izuku retorted that she should have let them climb first. A gust of wind caused her dress to flutter, and she insisted they not look. In a playful scuffle, she lightly struck 𝐒𝐮𝐬 with her heel, causing him to protest that she might make him fall. Finally reaching the top of the stairs, 𝐒𝐮𝐬 expressed his exhaustion, while Izuku admitted he wanted to sleep. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 interrupted, requesting the crowns from them. Both boys were taken aback, and Tadanashi chimed in, teasing that it wouldn't be easy for them. Suddenly, the doors swung open, revealing a massive boulder that rolled toward them. Both 𝐒𝐮𝐬 and 𝐒𝐮𝐬 were bewildered, while Izuku questioned its origin. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 urged 𝐒𝐮𝐬 to escape, and Izuku used his abilities to contain the boulder in a hexagonal barrier, allowing them to take cover behind a door. They felt a moment of safety, but 𝐒𝐮𝐬 asked to be released from 𝐒𝐮𝐬's grip. He apologized, pondering why everyone was after the crowns. Before 𝐒𝐮𝐬 could explain, Laura reappeared, declaring her claim to the crowns. A clash of weapons ensued as Laura and 𝐒𝐮𝐬 exchanged blows, each insisting the other stay out of their way. Izuku, growing impatient, fired a shot into the air, demanding an explanation for their obsession with the crowns. However, the two continued their battle, and the boulder crashed into a tower, causing chaos as the remaining students rushed in. With no other option, Izuku and 𝐒𝐮𝐬 jumped down, fleeing for their lives. Suddenly, hands emerged from the ground, ensnaring their legs. A voice assured them they wouldn't be found there. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 thanked the mysterious figure, recognizing Makigami-san, who had returned. Autumn revealed her intention to seize their Byakushiki and 𝗟𝗶𝐻𝐸. Izuku accused her of being a thief, while Autumn playfully claimed to be a mysterious beauty in disguise. Suddenly, mechanical spider-like legs burst from her back, and she declared her readiness for battle. As Autumn revealed her eyes, resembling a spider, she boasted about its poisonous capabilities. Izuku and 𝐒𝐮𝐬 struggled to dodge her attacks in the confined space. Autumn taunted them, pushing lockers aside as she prepared to strike. The boys charged at her, but she evaded by climbing the wall, revealing her affiliation with an evil organization. Izuku questioned if she was connected to the League of Villains, but Autumn dismissed the idea, claiming they were failures. She introduced herself as Autumn-sama from the secret organization Phantom Task, confirming the rumors about her. With a smirk, she prepared to attack again, but Izuku and 𝐒𝐮𝐬 leaped to counter her. Autumn blocked their strikes effortlessly, and they found themselves on the defensive. Izuku realized they needed an opening, while 𝐒𝐮𝐬 noted her many arms made it difficult to fight back. They attempted to strike, but Autumn retaliated, creating distance between them with a powerful kick. As they hit the lockers, Autumn seized them by their heads, summoning guns to fire at them. Izuku felt their energy waning, and 𝐒𝐮𝐬 used his wings to break free. They launched a counterattack, but Autumn mocked their efforts. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 found his timing and signaled to Izuku to distract her. Izuku charged, but Autumn effortlessly dodged his strikes, shooting at the cameras and lights until she ran out of ammo. Seizing the moment, 𝐒𝐮𝐬 activated his boost, while Izuku prepared his blade. However, Autumn trapped them in webbing, laughing at their futile attempts to escape. She revealed her intent to take their eyes, placing devices on their chests that sent jolts of electricity through their bodies, causing them to cry out in pain. Autumn relished her victory, teasing them about underestimating her abilities. The individuals responsible for the abduction of Orimura during the second Mondo Gross were Phantom Task. They were also behind the unfortunate fate of Hisashi Midoriya, acting on the request of Toshinori Yagi and Inko Yagi. They had asked for a lethal illness to be developed for him. Surprisingly, Hisashi had a chance to survive. His illness was treatable, but he chose not to take his medication, focusing instead on saving someone like Orimura. Now, the time had come to reunite Orimura with his father, Izuku Midoriya, accompanied by a sinister laugh. 𝐒𝐮𝐬, filled with anger, confronted the assailant, while Izuku expressed his frustration about his life being ruined. They attempted to fight back, but the voltage intensified around them. Autumn declared her intention to end their lives, but then hesitated, realizing the potential complications of her actions. Turning, she spotted Tadanashi, who revealed that both 𝐒𝐮𝐬 and Izuku were her favorites. Autumn was taken aback, questioning how Tadanashi had entered the secured area. Tadanashi, the student council president, explained her presence was part of her responsibilities. Autumn, in a fit of rage, attacked Tadanashi, stabbing her, which horrified both 𝐒𝐮𝐽 and Izuku. However, Tatanashi transformed into water, revealing it was merely a decoy. With a swift motion, Tatanashi launched a counterattack, striking Autumn, who managed to dodge the blow. Tatanashi introduced herself, stating she was Sarashiki Tatanashi, wielding her 𝐼𝐻, mysterious lady. The battle continued, but Autumn's equipment and armor were destroyed, allowing her to escape alongside the unknown 𝐼𝐻 pilot. Meanwhile, Tatanashi found herself in 𝐒𝐮𝐽's room with Izuku. Shifuyu and Maya discussed the threat posed by Phantom Task, emphasizing the importance of keeping an eye on both 𝐼𝐻𝐬 and Midoriya. Shifuyu expressed her concern for Tatanashi's safety, while Maya teased her about her worries. In an unknown location, Autumn confronted the unknown 𝐼𝐻 pilot, who turned out to be 𝐼𝐻𝐬 Midoriya. Autumn expressed her frustration, pushing Midoriya away and demanding a response. Midoriya remained silent, smiling, which only fueled Autumn's anger. Just then, Squall intervened, advising Autumn to calm down, as her anger was affecting her appearance. Squall took a seat, and Autumn reluctantly complied, sending Midoriya to maintain her 𝐼𝐻. Back at the academy, Tatanashi revealed her constant presence was to protect 𝐒𝐮𝐽 and Izuku. They learned that the Sarashiki family had a history of countering secret operations. Tatanashi reassured them that the immediate danger had passed, and they could relax. She apologized for being overly protective, but both 𝐒𝐮𝐽 and Izuku reassured her that she had done her job well. As they discussed the crowns Tatanashi had shown them, Izuku expressed his disdain for them, while 𝐒𝐮𝐽 was shocked to learn about their significance. Tatanashi explained that the crowns allowed the holder to live in the same room with them, which surprised both boys. Tatanashi playfully teased them about their reactions before bidding them good night. The following day, Izuku headed to UA after the 𝐼𝐻 Academy event and a successful operation. He requested Nizu to summon Toshinori and Inko to his office. Upon entering, Izuku, with his hair obscuring his eyes, confronted Inko. In a moment of rage, he struck her, causing her to lose her balance. Toshinori demanded to know the meaning of Izuku's actions, but Izuku was already charging his cannon, directing it at Toshinori. Filled with anger and sadness, Izuku unleashed his blast, sending Toshinori crashing through the window. He then turned his cannon toward Inko, who, despite her injuries, pleaded for understanding. Izuku accused her and Toshinori of being responsible for his father's death. Inko, shocked, insisted they had never intended to harm Hisashi, explaining that they believed his illness would prevent him from acting against them. Nizu, witnessing the confrontation, urged Izuku to unleash his full power. Izuku complied, and the blast caused significant damage, leaving Inko in pain. Afterward, Izuku left for home, while Nizu ordered Toshinori and Inko to leave the school, terminating their positions. As the story continued, 𝐒𝐮𝐽's birthday approached, followed by a meeting with Kanzashi and subsequent confrontations. Days passed since the attack, and Izuku and 𝐒𝐮𝐽 navigated the dark halls, following a map. Izuku questioned why he had to accompany 𝐒𝐮𝐽, who simply wanted company. Meanwhile, at UA, Izumi and her classmates pleaded with Nizu to reinstate All Might and Inko, but Nizu remained firm in his decision, citing their involvement in Hisashi's death. Izumi argued that Hisashi was not truly Izuku's father, but merely a kidnapper. Eraserhead launched his scarf at Izumi, tightening it around her neck. He warned her to be cautious with her words, reminding her that without Hisashi, UA might not exist. Ejiro, confused, asked what he meant. Nizu explained that Hisashi had been a student at UA in the business course, where he met Inko. After graduating, Hisashi invested and gradually built Midoriya Industries, which is now Izuku's company. Before Izuku was born, UA faced severe financial difficulties and was on the brink of shutting down. Hisashi had stepped in, stating that UA had helped him succeed, and now he was returning the favor. Nizu made it clear that if anyone attempted to reinstate those responsible for UA's troubles, he would take serious action against them, ensuring they would be expelled and blacklisted from every hero school. He emphasized that even the Hero Commission would not intervene, as they did not want to cross Shifuyu or Imura, a woman he respected greatly. Seeing they had no chance of winning the argument, The others nodded and exited 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐲's office. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 then left to fulfill his role as 𝐼's teacher, as Izuku had requested. Meanwhile, Izuku and 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐬 were exploring 𝐼's academy, with 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐬 expressing surprise at its size. Izuku pointed out that she clearly hadn't paid attention to the academy map. As they walked, Izuku reflected on the previous day's events, realizing the multiverse theory was real and that he had encountered various versions of himself. They arrived at a door labeled Room I. 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐬 opened it, but the room was empty. She wondered if they had the wrong room or if it was a prank. As they ventured further inside, the door closed behind them. Suddenly, two individuals jumped out and attacked them. Izuku and 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐬 quickly defended themselves, but the assailants continued to fight back. Izuku speculated that they were trespassers. Just then, 5 more figures appeared out of nowhere, overpowering them and placing potato sacks over their heads. When Izuku and 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐬 regained consciousness, they found themselves tied to chairs in a brightly lit room. Maya Yamada entered, wearing an unusual cow outfit, and announced the start of the 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐲𝐽 service competition, introducing herself as the host. 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐬 was bewildered, and Izuku expressed his intention to leave. He used his robotic arm to discreetly cut the ropes binding him. Maya excitedly explained that each contestant would choose how to please 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐬, and whoever succeeded would win. 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐬 was confused, while Maya smiled shyly, revealing that it was a secret battle. She then introduced the first contestant, Shinanono Hookie, who appeared in a kitsune outfit, looking embarrassed. 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐬 was surprised to see Hookie, who quickly averted her gaze and told him not to stare. Izuku, watching from the sidelines, wished for popcorn, and to his astonishment, a bucket appeared in front of him, seemingly conjured by one of his counterparts from another universe. As 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐬 and Hookie interacted, 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐬 complimented her outfit, and she shyly explained that she was dressed as a fox priestess. When 𝐒𝐮𝐬 reached out to touch her ears, Hookie blushed and accidentally spilled tea on him. She hurried to clean up the mess, apologizing for her clumsiness. Izuku observed the scene, amused, while Hookie expressed her embarrassment over the situation. Just as they were getting comfortable, Maya announced that time was up, much to Hookie's dismay. Despite her disappointment, 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐬 reassured her that it was fine. As 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐬 leaned closer to Hookie, he asked if he could touch her ears again. She quickly covered herself, flustered. Meanwhile, Izuku felt a sense of déjà vu, as if he had experienced something similar before. Later, Izuku was summoned by Tatanashi to the changing room, where he found her in a cat outfit. She playfully rubbed against him, mentioning another girl she wanted to introduce him to. After a brief time skip, Izuku helped 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐬, who was sore from their earlier encounters, back to his room. 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐬 questioned why the girls had been so aggressive, but admitted it had been fun. Izuku teased him about his obliviousness. Suddenly, they heard rustling in the bushes. A woman emerged from the shadows, revealing a younger version of Shifuyu. 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐬 was startled, but Izuku recognized that it wasn't her. The woman introduced herself as 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐲𝐽 Midoriya, claiming to be 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐬's counterpart. She ominously stated that in order to be herself, she needed to take their lives. She drew a weapon and fired. 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐬 managed to block the bullet with his IS arm, while Izuku used his robotic arm to do the same. However, the force of the impact caused them both to stumble. Midoriya taunted them, wondering how long they could maintain their defense. She fired another shot, but the bullet suddenly halted in midair. Confused, Midoriya looked on as Laura arrived, using her IS to stop the projectile. Laura then threw her knife, but drones emerged and destroyed it. Midoriya revealed her IS, Silent Zephyrus, and prepared for combat. She expressed her annoyance and sent her drones to create a diversion by firing at the ground. Laura realized Midoriya had escaped. Izuku checked on Laura, asking if she was alright, while 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐬 inquired about her well-being. Laura got back on her feet, asserting that she should be the one asking about their condition, as they were the targets. She questioned if they had any idea who was behind the attack. Izuku admitted he was unsure, and 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐬 echoed that sentiment, emphasizing the need for caution. The scene shifted to Izuku at home, engrossed in video games. Suddenly, a warp gate opened before him, revealing a man formed from the same fog and another man covered in hands. Izuku activated his security system, causing weapons to emerge from the walls and aim at the two intruders. He transformed his arm into a cannon, pointing it at them and charging it, demanding to know their intentions. 𝐒𝐮𝐲 introduced himself, apologizing for the intrusion, while Tamura identified himself as well. 𝐒𝐮𝐲 explained that their leader wished to speak with Izuku. They stepped back, revealing the portal they had entered through. Izuku warned them about the consequences of any hostile actions. Tamura acknowledged his awareness of the risks, adding that their leader was equally cautious. Izuku pressed for information about Shifuyu or Imura, to which 𝐒𝐮𝐲 responded that her reputation was another reason they wouldn't act against him, as even their leader feared her. Izuku cautiously deactivated his defense system, reverted his arm, and paused his game before stepping through the portal. He found himself inside a bar, surprised by the choice of location for a villain's hideout. He remarked on the cleverness of the setting, suggesting that heroes would never suspect villains would congregate in a bar. 𝐒𝐮𝐲 conceded that Izuku had a valid point. A TV flickered to life, displaying only a white screen. AFO greeted Izuku, expressing honor in meeting him. Izuku quipped about the advancements in technology, speculating whether he was speaking to an AI or if this was a call. AFO confirmed it was indeed a call and introduced himself as the leader of the League of Villains. Izuku jokingly noted that people might mistake AFO's name for a charity organization. AFO acknowledged the point but inquired if Izuku understood why he had been summoned. When Izuku asked if he wanted him to join, AFO clarified that while he could be useful in taking down heroes, they had no intention of harming him. After their conversation, he would be returned home. Izuku questioned how he could trust AFO to keep his word. AFO asserted that even as a villain, he would not go against Shifuyu or Imura, describing her as formidable. Izuku asked why he had been brought there, prompting AFO to direct Tamura to look at Izuku. AFO then asked Izuku to do the same with Tamura. When Izuku complied, AFO inquired if Tamura remembered his father's name. Tamura reluctantly revealed it, and AFO confirmed that Izuku's mother, Inko Yagi, was actually Inko Shimura. This revelation shocked both young men, leading them to exchange incredulous glances. Izuku questioned if that meant they were related, and Tamura echoed the sentiment. AFO confirmed that Inko and Kotaro were siblings, making them cousins. Izuku was now in his basement, playing video games alongside his cousin, Tamura. Since AFO had revealed their familial connection, they had been spending time together, playing games, shopping, and hanging out. To help Tamura blend in, Izuku created a cyber mask that allowed him to change his appearance. With long black hair and silver eyes, Tamura could venture outside without being recognized. Meanwhile, 𝐒𝐮𝐲 was consulting AFO about the arrangement. 𝐒𝐮𝐲 expressed concern over Izuku and Tamura spending time together. AFO reassured him, stating that despite Tamura's villainous tendencies, he needed a family connection. Both Izuku and Tamura shared a common disdain for heroes, stemming from their grandmother's abandonment of her children. While Nana had aspired to be a hero, she had ultimately failed her family, resulting in her grandchildren's current outlook. However, AFO noted the difference between them. Izuku despised heroes but did not wish to destroy them, while Tamura sought to dismantle the entire system. Back to Izuku and Tamura, they were engrossed in a digital game, debating the merits of different energy drinks. Izuku defended Monster, claiming it was superior to Red Bull in taste and variety. Meanwhile, Izumi and the rest of Class 1A were preparing for a training camp. Momo organized their shopping list, suggesting they split up to save time, while Katsuki grumbled and left with Katsumi and Ejiro Kirishima. Momo chose to ignore Katsuki's attitude and paired up with Izumi for their shopping trip. The group of 18 split up to gather their necessities. Izuku and Tamura, also known as Fuyuki Riku, completed their shopping for groceries and snacks. Tamura picked up 6 cans of Red Bull, while Izuku chose 6 cans of Monster. Although Tamura made the purchases, it was Izuku who paid for everything, but he didn't mind since he had plenty of money. Meanwhile, Izumi and Momo were discussing their plans. Izumi inquired about Tamura's progress, to which Momo expressed her frustration about her parents restricting her access to their funds for her attempts to get closer to Zuzu. She lamented that if a certain person hadn't interrupted her at the house, 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐲 would have been hers. Izumi vowed to confront those who had influenced him. Momo then asked about All Might's situation with a restraining order, to which Izumi replied that neither of their parents could get rid of it, as someone had prevented them from taking action. They spotted Izuku and Tamura and decided to approach them quietly. Izuku remarked on their foolishness, while Tamura expressed his longing to change the world due to such antics. Izuku agreed, and they moved to a secluded alley where Kurogiri transported them back to Izuku's house. The next day, Izuku was in class, chatting with 𝐒𝐮𝐬 and 𝗏𝐿, while some girls conversed nearby. Mayuzumi, a girl from another class, approached them. She wanted to ask for a favor involving her older sister, who worked for a publishing company and wanted to conduct an exclusive interview with personal IS pilots. 𝗏𝐿 examined the magazine, and Izuku noted that being featured in magazines was nothing new for him. Mayuzumi explained that personal IS pilots were treated like celebrities and often received modeling opportunities, prompting 𝐒𝐮𝐬 to question 𝗏𝐿 about it. Rin unexpectedly joined the conversation, eager to show off her modeling photos. Izuku affectionately patted her head, causing her to purr. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 declined her offer to see more photos, and Izuku mentioned he had already seen them. Rin, feeling defensive, insisted they look at her pictures, which led to a playful exchange until Shifuyu intervened, reminding Rin to return to class. Later, Izuku joined Laura for an interview while 𝐒𝐮𝐬 accompanied 𝗏𝐿, who was motivated by the promise of a free dinner. Mayuzumi Nagisako, the associate editor, introduced herself and began the interview. She asked Izuku and 𝐒𝐮𝐬 about their experiences at an all-girls school. Izuku shared that it could be both a nightmare and appealing, while 𝐒𝐮𝐬 noted the inconvenience of limited restroom access. Their light-hearted banter made Nagisako laugh. Nagisako then asked 𝗏𝐿 about her older sister and her aspirations as a personal IS pilot. 𝗏𝐿 expressed gratitude for her sister's gift but stated she had no interest in becoming a representative cadet at the moment. When Nagisako pressed Izuku about his past and why he hadn't exposed certain individuals, he explained that he was busy with his company and studies. He didn't want to ruin the lives of those who had cared for him, but he would consider revealing the truth once they became adults. The interview continued with playful competition between 𝗏𝐿 and Izuku regarding their strength, with Izuku recalling a previous victory. Afterward, they prepared for a photo session, and Izuku entered his room to find Tadanashi. She asked him to look after her little sister, revealing a picture of her sister, Sarashiki Kanzaki. Izuku noted their resemblance, and Tadanashi described her sister as talented but currently lacking a personal IS due to delays caused by the development of 𝐒𝐮𝐬's IS. Tadanashi suggested that Izuku team up with Kanzaki for upcoming tag matches, and he agreed to try, while she requested he keep her name out of it due to their strained relationship. Izuku promised to approach Kanzaki naturally, and Tadanashi expressed her gratitude, trusting him to help. Izuku found himself surrounded by a group of girls from class. One of them recognized him as Izuku Midoriya from class 1, while another asked what he was doing there. He inquired about Kanzashi, only to be met with confusion. As he scanned the room, he spotted Kanzashi, who was busy working and eating simultaneously. Approaching her, he introduced himself, but Kanzashi paused her work and acknowledged him with a hint of annoyance. She asked what he wanted, and he proposed teaming up for the upcoming tag matches. She firmly declined, stating that she had the right to hit him, to which he questioned the reason behind her hostility. Kanzashi dismissed him, saying that he wasn't worth the effort. Later, Kanzashi left her lab and saw Izuku waiting. He greeted her, but she ignored him. He brought up the tag match tournament again, asking if she had reconsidered teaming up. She continued to ignore him until he asked why she was reluctant. Izuku explained that he had a habit of helping others in need, but before he could finish, Kanzashi attempted to slap him. Instinctively, he blocked her with his right arm, causing her to wince in pain. She expressed her surprise at the strength of his arm, which he revealed was robotic due to an accident when he was younger. Stunned, Kanzashi ran away. The scene shifted to Izuku at his computer, having just completed his work for the day. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 lounged on the bed when Tadanashi appeared behind him. Izuku noted that sneaking up on him wouldn't work, and Tadanashi asked if he needed help from the maintenance team. He explained that he usually contacted his employees but anticipated 𝐾𝐮𝐲𝐸 would reject their assistance. Instead, he considered asking them to help with 𝐾𝐮𝐲𝐸's personal IS. Tadanashi speculated that 𝐾𝐮𝐲𝐸 was likely trying to assemble her IS on her own, feeling pressured to keep up with others. Izuku realized that she didn't want to be left behind by Tadanashi. Tadanashi confirmed that 𝐾𝐮𝐲𝐸 was making things harder for herself. Ichika was surprised to learn that Tadanashi had assembled her IS independently, with advice from maintenance students. Izuku recounted his earlier encounter with 𝐾𝐮𝐲𝐸, explaining how she had tried to hit him and ended up hurting herself when he blocked her. Tadanashi was taken aback, noting that 𝐾𝐮𝐲𝐸 rarely wasted energy on pointless actions. Izuku insisted that he hadn't meant any harm, and even if he had, his friends would have known. Tadanashi playfully suggested that he might have had a chance with 𝐾𝐮𝐲𝐸. Later, 𝐾𝐮𝐲𝐸 piloted her IS, Ashige Nishiki, and initially had no issues. However, it soon malfunctioned, causing her to fall. Izuku and Ichika sprang into action, summoning their IS to save her. Izuku managed to catch her just in time, though they crashed. Ichika flew over to check on them, and 𝐾𝐮𝐲𝐸 called out to Izuku, who remarked that he would feel sore the next day. They reassured each other that they were okay, and 𝐾𝐮𝐲𝐸 expressed her gratitude for being saved. As they regrouped, they realized they would need to submit a written explanation for the incident. 𝐾𝐮𝐲𝐸 took responsibility, but Izuku assured her it was due to her IS malfunctioning and not her fault. Approaching him, she thanked him for saving her earlier, to which he replied that it was simply his habit to help. He noticed something was bothering her, but she looked away and dismissed it. He suggested they grab a bite to eat, and Ichika agreed, stating he was hungry. Time passed, and Izuku and 𝐾𝐮𝐲𝐸 worked on fixing her IS. He proposed asking the maintenance students for help or calling his personal mechanics, emphasizing the urgency before the tag matches. 𝐾𝐮𝐲𝐸, lost in thought, eventually agreed, and they decided to head home for the day. The next day, the maintenance team arrived, including a girl dressed as Pikachu. After a productive day of work, Izuku and Ichika assisted the team, and 𝐾𝐮𝐲𝐸 expressed her gratitude for their help, admitting she couldn't have done it alone. Once they left, Izuku sighed in relief, recalling how the last time they had wanted to disassemble his arm to examine it. As the tournament approached, the opening ceremony began with artificial fireworks. Tadanashi welcomed everyone and encouraged the participants to give their all. Meanwhile, Izuku searched for 𝐾𝐮𝐲𝐸, with Ichika assisting him. They wondered where she could be, unaware that she was hiding under the stairs, feeling overwhelmed and uncertain about facing her opponents. As Tadanashi prepared to start the tournament, the teams were announced, including Izuku and 𝐾𝐮𝐲𝐸 as partners. Suddenly, an earthquake shook the venue, triggering emergency warnings. Izuku and Ichika were alarmed, realizing something was wrong. In the arena, the girls faced upgraded IS pilots, struggling against their formidable opponents. 𝐾𝐮𝐲𝐸, hearing the explosions, felt fear as a robot approached her. She called for help, and just then, Izuku and Ichika burst through, their IS deployed to protect her. They positioned themselves between her and the advancing robot, urging her to activate her IS for protection. 𝐾𝐮𝐲𝐸 complied, and as she prepared to fight alongside them, they strategized to break through the enemy forces. 𝐾𝐮𝐲𝐸 felt a surge of determination as she declared her longing to fight alongside her friends. With a spear summoned in her hand, she charged at the robot, landing a solid hit. Izuku encouraged everyone to keep pushing forward, while Ichika strategized to create some distance from their opponent. Together, they forced the robot to retreat, but an explosion suddenly erupted nearby, catching them off guard. Ichika checked the cameras, fearing the worst about 𝐒𝐮𝐲𝐸 and the others. 𝐾𝐮𝐲𝐸 quickly reacted, blocking a blast from the robot just in time. Izuku unleashed his 𝗟𝗶𝐻𝗸 against the mechanical foe, urging his teammates to take charge of the situation. 𝐾𝐮𝐲𝐸 instructed 𝗟𝗏 to check the condition of the gate, while Izuku prepared for the confrontation ahead. As the robot began firing at them, Izuku and 𝐾𝐮𝐲𝐸 deftly dodged the attacks. In a moment of horror, 𝐾𝐮𝐲𝐸 glimpsed footage revealing Tadanashi injured, her eyes widening in fear. Fueled by anger, 𝐾𝐮𝐦𝐽 charged at the robot, but it deflected her spear. Undeterred, she deployed her cannons and unleashed a barrage of fire. Izuku called out to her, trying to bring her back to her senses, but she was consumed by rage. The two of them crashed down, and Izuku rushed to her side. 𝐾𝐮𝐦𝐽 vowed to not forgive the robot for its actions, firing a powerful shot that caused a massive explosion, leaving the robot's arms scattered on the ground. Spotting the core, 𝐾𝐮𝐦𝐽 realized that destroying it could turn the tide. However, she found herself out of ammunition and called for Izuku's assistance. Just as Izuku approached, another robot appeared, dragging 𝐒𝐮𝐽𝐬 along with it. Izuku sprang into action, battling the new threat but struggled to fight at full strength with both 𝐒𝐮𝐽𝐬 and 𝐾𝐮𝐦𝐽 in danger. 𝐾𝐮𝐦𝐽 felt a wave of fear wash over her as the damaged robot began to repair itself, grabbing 𝐒𝐮𝐽𝐬 in the process. In a moment of despair, 𝐾𝐮𝐦𝐽 thought to herself that she was not strong enough to save them. The robot threw 𝐒𝐮𝐽𝐬 aside, and as 𝐾𝐮𝐦𝐽 braced for impact, she was shocked to see 𝐼𝐻𝐻𝐼 protect her, taking the blow instead. 𝐾𝐮𝐦𝐽's heart sank as she realized her sister had fallen. Izuku, witnessing the scene, was overtaken by a primal fury. He fought with a ferocity that shattered the robot he faced, ensuring it could no longer regenerate. 𝐾𝐮𝐦𝐽 rushed to 𝐼𝐻𝐻𝐼's side, who handed her a pendant, a charm meant for dire situations. 𝐼𝐻𝐻𝐼 urged her to use it wisely, and 𝐾𝐮𝐦𝐽 nodded, determined to honor her sister's wish. 𝐒𝐮𝐽 joined the fray, checking on 𝐒𝐮𝐽𝐬, who was slowly regaining consciousness. She asked if he could use 𝗟𝗏𝗸, but 𝐒𝐮𝐽𝐬 admitted he was too drained. Meanwhile, Izuku managed to regain control after his berserk state, ready to assist his friends. 𝐒𝐮𝐽𝐬, realizing time was of the essence, prepared to engage the robot, but was struck by a blast. She wished she could buy them more time and asked Izuku if he could handle the situation. He affirmed his commitment to help. 𝐾𝐮𝐦𝐽 threw her spear at the robot, declaring they would buy the time needed. As they fought, 𝐾𝐮𝐦𝐽 activated her manual guidance system, launching missiles at the robot. However, it was clear that their efforts were not enough. The robot prepared to strike 𝐾𝐮𝐽𝐽, but 𝐒𝐮𝐽𝐬 intervened with a protective barrier, allowing Izuku to strike from behind. With renewed determination, 𝐒𝐮𝐽𝐬 unleashed her crossbow, successfully severing one of the robot's arms. 𝐒𝐮𝐽𝐬 joined in, cutting the remaining limbs, while Izuku targeted the legs. 𝐾𝐮𝐽𝐽, ready to finish the fight, fired more missiles, one of which carried the aqua crystal. The missile struck, but the robot remained standing, prompting 𝐾𝐮𝐽𝐽 to express her disbelief. 𝐼𝐻𝐻𝐼 then urged them to use the crystal, snapping her fingers to detonate it. The explosion obliterated the robot, ensuring it could no longer threaten them. In the aftermath, Izuku rested in the infirmary, recovering from the toll of his berserk mode. He later visited 𝐿 in the hospital, checking on his uncle's condition. 𝐿 acknowledged he felt worse but expressed concern for Izuku, who reassured him he was fine but needed to be cautious with his powers. Izuku mentioned the recent kidnapping incident, suggesting it might have been a favor. He then excused himself, planning to take Laura to the arcade the next day. Later, Izuku found himself sitting on his bed at the academy with Laura resting against him. She enjoyed the moment, and they both agreed it was nice to share such closeness. Laura inquired about 𝐼𝐻𝐻𝐼, and Izuku explained she was with 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐻, who was teaching her. Laura jokingly suggested that 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐻 might turn 𝐼𝐻𝐻 into a dictator, to which Izuku acknowledged the possibility. She then asked how they ended up together, and Izuku simply replied that it was because she loved him. Laura acknowledged the truth in Izuku's words as they continued to share a moment of closeness. She recalled his past and how it connected to his longing to save Katsuki. Izuku, having just woken up, prepared his breakfast but was interrupted by a knock at the door. The AI informed him that several members of Class 1A were waiting outside. Curious about who was missing, he learned that Momo, Izumi, Ochako, Tsuyu, and Katsuki were there. He sighed, feeling a mix of annoyance and concern. Upon opening the door, he noticed the injuries they bore. Ochako had a wound on her thigh, Tsuyu had a cut on her tongue, Izumi's arms were broken from a fight, Momo had a head injury, and Katsuki was missing. Izuku activated a security system, aiming weapons at them, and firmly stated that they were not welcome. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 pleaded for Izuku's help to rescue Katsuki, but Izuku retorted with sarcasm, questioning why the esteemed Class 1A would seek assistance from someone they deemed inferior. Katsumi insisted they needed him, but Izuku pointed out that they had their quirks. Mina explained that they couldn't use their abilities without permission, while Toru urged Izuku to use his mech to save Katsuki. Izuku expressed his frustration, feeling that they were trying to sacrifice him for their own benefit. Denki insisted they weren't sacrificing him, but Izuku reminded them that using his mech without authorization would lead to severe consequences for him. He revealed that 𝗟𝗶𝐻𝐸 was a precious reminder of his father, who had been killed, and questioned whether Katsuki would even be grateful if he helped. The tension escalated, and Izuku made it clear that he would not let them live their lives without facing the repercussions of their actions. Class 1A left, defeated and humiliated. Laura inquired whether they would try to stop him from exposing them, to which Izuku replied that they had already attempted and failed. He recounted how Inko and Toshinori had tried to arrange a quirk marriage with Izumi and others, but it had been futile. He then hinted that Laura had something that belonged to him. As the conversation progressed, Izuku's actions became more assertive, causing Laura to react unexpectedly. The atmosphere shifted, and the intensity of their interaction filled the room. The following day, Izuku left Ichika to handle some measurements, claiming he had business to attend to. In reality, he was simply paying Ichika back for the trouble he had caused him. Later, while having lunch on the rooftop with Ichika, Hooky, Cecilia, and Rin, they shared their thoughts and feelings about their appearances and self-image. Rin expressed her surprise at gaining weight, but Izuku reassured her that he loved her just the way she was. Hooky, feeling the pressure of maintaining her training, remarked on the importance of discipline. Ichika, oblivious to the girl's concerns, was playfully reprimanded by Izuku for his insensitivity. As they enjoyed their lunch, Cecilia felt the need to defend her cooking skills, leading to a light-hearted exchange among the group. The atmosphere was filled with laughter, even as they teased each other about their culinary abilities. Later that night, Izuku and Kanzaki were on their way to his room when they encountered a chicken running through the halls. They shared a moment of confusion before heading to watch a Godzilla marathon together, enjoying each other's company. After a time skip, Izuku entered the infirmary where Hooky, Charlotte, and Laura were recovering from food poisoning caused by Cecilia's cooking. They all shared a laugh at the situation, while Ichika was busy cooking with Cecilia. When Izuku arrived at the dorms of Class 1A, he made it clear that he was only there to deliver something to Uncle Shoyuda. The students were shocked to learn that he had brought pills, which he explained were requested by 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐻𝐸. The revelation caused a stir among the classmates, but Izuku remained unfazed, tossing the pills to 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐻𝐸 while casually mentioning their potency. Izumi questioned the need for such pills, and 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐻𝐸 simply replied that it was because of them. Izuku seized the opportunity to slip away before Toshinori, who had exhausted the last remnants of One for All against All for One, or Inko, could notice his departure. Although they were no longer teachers, they were still permitted to visit Izumi. On a train, Izuku was asleep, wearing headphones to block out the noise. The girls were engaged in a card game. Cecilia declared her victory, while Laura insisted she would have the last laugh, raising one of her cards with a smile. Hooky, focused on the game, thought about how winning would allow her to join Ichika's group. Laura smirked at her, and Hooky prayed for assistance, ultimately picking the card Laura had raised. Laura's smirk widened as Hooky groaned in defeat. Ichika, sitting in another chair, pulled out his camera. Charlotte inquired if it was his, to which he confirmed he had brought it from home to capture memories during the trip. Hooky expressed disbelief that he hadn't mentioned this earlier. Ichika was puzzled by their reactions, wondering what was wrong. After a while, the train reached its destination, and everyone disembarked. Izuku woke up and joined them. Ichika took out his camera, and Charlotte admired the appealing location, prompting Izuku to hug her from behind and compliment her beauty. Charlotte giggled, while Hooky remarked on the quaintness of the hotel. Izuku then playfully pulled Charlotte away, causing the other girls to rush past and accidentally stomp on Ichika. Charlotte asked if Izuku had dragged her away from the crowd, to which he confirmed. She wondered why he hadn't pulled Ichika along too, and he explained that 𝐒𝐮𝐽 often dragged him into trouble, so this was payback. After a few moments, 𝐒𝐮𝐽 stood up, dusted himself off, and they approached the entrance. Maya announced that everyone now had free time with their groups, reminding them of their scheduled visit to 𝐾𝐮𝐬 temple that evening and instructing them to arrive on time. 𝐒𝐮𝐽 limped after being trampled, and Maya informed him that a piece of luggage had been delivered for him. Curious, 𝐒𝐮𝐽 took Izuku with him to check it out. They found a white suitcase with 𝐒𝐮𝐽's name on it. Izuku thought about needing to put a restraining order on 𝐒𝐮𝐽 someday. As they examined the luggage, Kanzashi approached and asked what was wrong. Izuku admitted they were staring at the suitcase like fools, prompting Kanzashi to chuckle. 𝐒𝐮𝐽 explained they were trying to figure out what was inside. Suddenly, the luggage began to move, and Tadanashi emerged from it, announcing her arrival. Izuku was astonished and questioned how she fit inside. 𝐒𝐮𝐽 was equally surprised, and Kanzashi rushed to shove Tadanashi back into the suitcase, demanding to know why she was there. Tadanashi playfully protested, insisting she hadn't done anything wrong. Kanzashi closed the suitcase with Tadanashi still inside and called for help from Izuku and 𝐒𝐮𝐽. They managed to get the suitcase back on the bus, but Izuku noticed a flash of blue hair behind a wall. Kanzashi asked what that was about, and Izuku told her to go ahead while he caught up. Kanzashi bid him farewell and gave him a shy kiss on the cheek before leaving with 𝐒𝐮𝐽. Izuku approached the wall and pulled Tadanashi from her hiding spot. She asked if he had known she was there, and he explained he had seen her hair and recalled her ability to create water replicas. Tadanashi inquired about his intentions, and Izuku jokingly mentioned that if they were at his home, things would be quite different. They shared a kiss, their connection deepening as Tadanashi wrapped her legs around his waist. They both knew that if they were at home, they would be spending the entire day together. Eventually, they broke the kiss, and Tadanashi asked when they would inform the other girls about their relationship. Izuku reassured her that Charlotte, Laura, Rin, and Melissa were already aware, and they would tell Kanzashi after the trip. Afterward, Izuku rejoined the others and saw 𝐒𝐮𝐽 taking photos of Cecilia. 𝐒𝐮𝐽 remarked on her beauty, which made Cecilia smile, though she internally noted his impatience. When 𝐒𝐮𝐽 showed her the photos, Cecilia became annoyed. Izuku decided to keep his distance from 𝐒𝐮𝐽, who was soon surrounded by girls asking for pictures. 𝐒𝐮𝐽 pulled Izuku along, claiming it was boring to be alone, to which Izuku responded with frustration. Later, Charlotte approached and found Izuku and 𝐒𝐮𝐽 searching the ground. She asked what they were doing, and 𝐒𝐮𝐽 explained that he had dropped his lens cap. Izuku teased him about being careless. Charlotte offered to help, suggesting she could fit her hand under the bridge to retrieve it. Izuku thought about her previous antics but kept quiet. Charlotte got on her knees to look for the cap, but it was too dark. 𝐒𝐮𝐽 asked if she could reach it, and Izuku speculated it might have rolled too far. Charlotte, undeterred, crawled under the bridge, her skirt revealing more than intended. 𝐒𝐮𝐽 averted his gaze, and Charlotte triumphantly announced she had found the cap, handing it to 𝐒𝐮𝐽, who thanked her awkwardly. Izuku suggested 𝐒𝐮𝐽 could go ahead while he and Charlotte caught up. 𝐒𝐮𝐽 agreed and wandered off to take more photos. Izuku then hugged Charlotte from behind and pointed out that her skirt had revealed her backside while she was searching. Charlotte blushed at the compliment, and they shared a passionate kiss that lasted for a while before they reluctantly broke apart to rejoin the group. Soon, Charlotte decided to join the other girls, leaving Izuku alone for a moment until 𝐒𝐮𝐽 pulled him along again. They spotted Kanzashi running after a girl dressed in a Pikachu costume, which made Izuku chuckle at the amusing sight. Later, the group settled on some benches to enjoy sweets. Cecilia exclaimed how delicious they were, thanking 𝐒𝐮𝐽 for bringing them. 𝐒𝐮𝐽 was puzzled by how things had turned out. Laura, eyeing some animal-shaped sweets, asked what they were. Charlotte explained they were Japanese sweets, and Izuku offered Laura a plate. Initially hesitant, she eventually tried one and found it enjoyable. As the day progressed, Izuku found himself once again being pulled along by 𝐒𝐮𝐽, wondering how this kept happening. Hooky approached, and they exchanged greetings, with 𝐒𝐮𝐽 asking where everyone else had gone. Hooky explained she had gotten separated from the group. Do you think anyone would be foolish enough to believe that? Well, 𝐒𝐮𝐽 certainly was. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 mentioned that there was a magnificent bamboo forest ahead and asked if 𝐒𝐮𝐬 had been there yet. 𝐒𝐮𝐬, surprised, admitted he hadn't and suggested they go together. Blushing, 𝐒𝐮𝐬 agreed, and they set off for the bamboo forest, leaving Izuku behind, feeling a bit annoyed. He thought to himself that 𝐒𝐮𝐬 was a nuisance, but not as much as them. In a different scene, Izuku found himself being dragged by 𝐒𝐮𝐬, who was overly excited, especially after losing his camera to a group of girls eager to see the photos. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 searched the area, expressing his frustration at losing it. Izuku pointed out that 𝐒𝐮𝐬 could have simply said no, but instead, he had to act foolishly. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 protested, feeling insulted by the remark. Suddenly, they noticed a figure illuminated by the sunlight, making it hard to see clearly. As the figure stepped forward, it became clear that it was Midoriya. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 recognized her and felt a rush of concern. Izuku instinctively transformed his hand into his cannon, aiming it at Midoriya. She ominously declared that she was there for 𝐒𝐮𝐬's life, extending her arms and calling him the Black Knight. A bright light enveloped her as her new IS materialized. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 questioned her motives, while Izuku wondered if he could just leave the situation. Midoriya insisted he could not. Izuku, frustrated, reminded her that she had previously attempted to shoot them. Midoriya revealed her true target was actually Oromiura Shifuyu, which shocked 𝐒𝐮𝐬. Midoriya fired at 𝐒𝐮𝐬, who quickly activated his armlet IS to block the blast, though he was still knocked down. Izuku retaliated with blasts from his cannon, forcing Midoriya to evade. With no other option, she retreated. Meanwhile, Tadanashi was engaged in battle with Squall when a shot struck Squall's tail, causing significant damage. Squall demanded to know who had dared to attack her, and Tadanashi looked on in confusion. To their surprise, a figure clad in black with red wings and a skull mask appeared. Tadanashi asked for the figure's identity, and he introduced himself as the Reaper, stating that Izuku would explain everything later. He urged Tadanashi to leave and defuse a bomb. Not wanting to argue, she departed, leaving the Reaper with Squall. Squall, bewildered, inquired about his identity, and the Reaper ominously stated he was the symbol of death. As the Reaper began to whistle a haunting tune, Squall felt a chill run down her spine, realizing the danger she was in. The Reaper proclaimed his identity as death itself. In another scene, 𝐒𝐮𝐬 struggled to rise, determined not to let Shifuyu down. Izuku encouraged him, and they both prepared to confront Midoriya. As she aimed to fire at the train, 𝐒𝐮𝐬 and Izuku intervened, stopping her attack. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 checked on everyone's safety, while Midoriya taunted them about their survival. They drew their swords, ready for battle. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 declared they would not let her pass, and Izuku pointed out that 𝐒𝐮𝐬 had borrowed a phrase from Gandalf. Midoriya scoffed at their bravado, and all three charged into combat. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 urged Shifuyu to keep the others safe while Izuku vowed to handle Midoriya. Shifuyu warned them about a time bomb on the train, set to detonate in 10 minutes. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 and Izuku promised to return as soon as they dealt with Midoriya. Meanwhile, 𝐒𝐮𝐬 and Cecilia were engaged in a fight against 𝐒𝐮𝐬 when a chaos spear struck 𝐒𝐮𝐬, but it lacked power. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 wondered who had attacked, while Cecilia was equally puzzled. 𝐒𝐻𝐮𝐬, recovering from the blast, demanded to know who had dared to strike her. A new figure, Infinite, introduced himself as the chaos bringer of the Phantom Ruby, claiming his power was unmatched. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 and Cecilia, realizing they needed help, decided to assist Izuku. Back with Izuku and 𝐒𝐮𝐬, they continued to battle Midoriya. She revealed that she had opposed the plan to kill Hisashi Midoriya, leaving Izuku skeptical of her honesty. Just then, the bomb exploded, and 𝐒𝐮𝐬 was horrified. Izuku realized they were too late, and Midoriya smiled menacingly, preparing to attack them both. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 and Cecilia rushed in just in time to witness their fall. Meanwhile, Maya expressed her concern for 𝐒𝐮𝐬 and Izuku. As the battle raged on, Squall, injured, protected Midoriya from Laura's attack. When asked what had happened, Squall cryptically mentioned facing death itself. Midoriya unleashed a massive explosion, devastating the area. Tadanashi, from a rooftop, prepared a giant sniper rifle and fired at Squall, destroying her arm. As the fight continued, Reaper slipped away. Tadanashi called out to Izuku and Ichika, who arrived just in time. Ichika rode in on Hooky, and together they activated their powerful forms, ready to confront Midoriya. Midoriya, realizing the threat they posed, prepared to defend herself. Izuku unleashed a barrage of shots while Ichika struck with immense force, breaking through her defenses. After their successful attack, they found Autumn defeated, and Infinite was nearby. As they regrouped, Hooky inquired about Phantom Task's whereabouts, and Ichika explained they had fled. They checked on the train and confirmed everyone was safe. Tadanashi, concerned, asked Izuku about Reaper, while Shifuyu questioned who Infinite was. Izuku realized he could no longer keep the truth hidden. He called out to the figures who had been watching from the shadows, revealing Infinite and Reaper. The girls prepared for a fight, but Infinite assured them there was no need for conflict. Reaper introduced himself as the symbol of death, while Infinite claimed to be the chaos bringer. Izuku explained that he had been in a meeting, but it was with alternate versions of himself. After a brief moment, both Infinite and Reaper removed their masks, revealing their faces. Izuku, as Infinite, introduced himself as Izuku Midoriya, while the other Izuku simply stated he was Izuku Midoriya. Everyone was taken aback, realizing they shared the same name and face. Kanzashi, intrigued by the concept, speculated about the multiverse, while Laura confirmed their theory that these two were variants of their Izuku. Time passed, and at Izuku's house, he and Tadanashi found themselves alone, while Eri was with Nizu, learning new things. The rest of his girlfriends were out, leaving Izuku and Tadanashi with the entire night to themselves. 9 was already formidable with his intelligence and inventions. If he encountered other versions of himself, the combined power would be overwhelming. Meeting any version with access to the Chaos Emeralds, Emerald, or Soul Emeralds would make him unstoppable. If he met Soundwave Izuku, he could acquire Cybertronian technology. If he encountered Sun Wukong, he could obtain a peach and a pill to gain immortality. If he met IS Izuku, he could analyze and create his own IS. If he met Ultimatrix Izuku, with 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴's assistance, he could develop his own Omnitrix. If he met Reaper, he could gain Tengu-like abilities similar to 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐽. If he met other versions of himself, he could seek their help against threats or learn magic from those who wielded it. The IS Academy was mostly deserted after the attack, with many IS units undergoing repairs. A sudden blackout occurred, and the windows closed. Meanwhile, Izuku and Ichika received a letter summoning them to Kuromochi Research. Upon entering, they found the place shrouded in darkness. They called out, but a shadow emerged from the wall, revealing a woman in an IS suit and lab coat, wearing cat-themed footwear. She vanished and then reappeared behind them, playfully suggesting they join her in her room. Startled, they jumped away, and Izuku aimed his cannon at her, warning her to keep her distance. The woman introduced herself as 𝐾𝐿, the head of Kuromochi's second lab. A few minutes later, both 𝗟𝗶𝐻𝐸 and Byakushiki were being scanned. 𝐾𝐿 noted their condition, suggesting that maintenance would be quicker if done on-site. When Ichika asked how long it would take, 𝐾𝐿 replied that it would take a while and suggested they go fishing at a nearby river, tossing them some fishing rods. Although initially confused, they decided to give it a try. As they sat on the rocks by the river, Izuku expressed his boredom, while Ichika found the experience relaxing. They discussed the whereabouts of Reaper and Infinite, noting that they had returned to their own worlds. Ichika asked how many versions of Izuku he had encountered, to which Izuku replied that he had met many. He humorously mentioned that if he had a nickel for every time he met a version of himself that was a jackal hybrid with a gem in its chest, he would have 3 nickels. Ichika inquired about the most powerful version, and Izuku confidently stated that it was Reaper, a physical manifestation of death itself. Later, while they were frying the fish they had caught, Izuku suddenly heard Tadanashi's voice in his mind, urging him to hurry. He rushed to 𝗟𝗶𝐻𝐸, freeing it from its restraints and declaring his need to return to the academy. Ichika equipped himself and followed him. After a brief flight, they crashed through the ceiling of the academy, witnessing soldiers carrying an injured Tadanashi. They confronted the soldiers, demanding they release her. After a brief struggle, they managed to defeat them, and Izuku picked up Tadanashi, who weakly opened her eyes and reassured them that she was fine but insisted they needed to act quickly to save everyone. Kanzashi, who was anxiously waiting, explained that the IS Academy was powerless due to a hacking attack. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 and the others had entered the system to fix it but were now unable to wake up. Izuku and 𝐒𝐮𝐬 agreed to rescue everyone in the virtual reality. They entered the system, with Izuku heading to Rin first and 𝐒𝐮𝐬 going to Cecilia. In the virtual world, Izuku found himself confronting a version of himself atop Rin, who was struggling. Just then, the real Izuku burst through the door, furious at the sight. As they fought, the virtual version was defeated, and Rin's pain subsided. Izuku reassured her, and after helping her get dressed, Kanzashi instructed them to continue rescuing the others. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 was almost finished rescuing Cecilia when Izuku moved on to 𝗟𝗘, who was in distress. He confronted the virtual version of himself that was threatening her, and after a fierce battle he emerged victorious. 𝗟𝗘 returned to the real world, followed shortly by Cecilia. With only Laura and 𝐒𝐮𝐬 left to rescue, Izuku found Laura in a vulnerable state. He swiftly dealt with the virtual version of himself holding her captive and freed her. After ensuring she was safe, they returned to the door where Laura rejoined the real world. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 noted that only 𝐒𝐮𝐬 remained, and a giant chest appeared, revealing special weapons and armor sent by Kanzashi. They prepared for the final confrontation, knowing that 𝐒𝐮𝐬's version of Izuku would be the strongest. Izuku awoke to find himself surrounded by 7 unfamiliar faces. Among them were Izumi and Toshinori, appearing in a skeletal form, indicating that he no longer possessed any of One for All. Confusion filled Izuku as he questioned the situation. Izumi, distressed, expressed her fear of dying, to which Izuku coldly suggested she find a dark corner to retreat to. Her tears flowed freely, prompting Toshinori to admonish Izuku for his harshness, reminding him that Izumi was his sister. Izuku retorted that they shared blood but were not siblings, emphasizing that Izumi was a product of Toshinori's lineage, while he was not. He demanded to know what was happening. The other 7 users revealed themselves, and Izuku recognized them. Yoichi asked if he knew them, and Izuku explained that 𝐼 had once approached him with an offer to join him. Toshinori was taken aback, questioning why Izuku hadn't mentioned this. Izuku clarified that he was not Toshinori's son and had refused the offer, stating that 𝐼 had assured him he would not pursue him. Nana challenged Izuku's confidence, asking how he could be so certain. He simply replied that Shifuyu Orimura was a name that struck fear in 𝐼, which he found understandable. Izuku then turned his gaze to Yoichi Shigaraki, suggesting that he was the one who had initiated conflict with 𝐼, who merely sought to help people. Yoichi insisted that Izuku did not understand 𝐼's true intentions, which included creating an army and causing harm. Izuku countered by asking if Yoichi had considered that those who followed 𝐼 might be similar to him. He posed a thought-provoking question about what might have happened if 𝐼 had found him at a young age instead of Yamada Maya, leaving the room in silence. Toshinori was visibly shaken, realizing that had 𝐼 discovered Izuku, he might have become an even greater threat. Izuku reminded everyone that villains are not born but made, reflecting on the struggles of his family. He addressed the past users, acknowledging their ability to see through his eyes and their awareness of the multiverse. He shared a story about a version of himself who had One for All and could utilize all their quirks, but after being framed, it was Izumi from that world who inherited One for All, albeit with limitations. Turning to Izumi, he offered a bittersweet congratulations, acknowledging that her time was limited. He expressed regret that he could not save her, noting that while some versions of himself could remove the curse of One for All, he doubted they would help her. Izumi broke down in tears, and Izuku coldly remarked on her distress, expressing a lack of remorse for her fate and warning Toshinori against passing One for All to Melissa, knowing she would refuse it after everything that had transpired. In the real world, 𝐒𝐮𝐬 found herself in a different setting. As Izuku began to awaken, he quickly shut his eyes against the harsh ceiling lights. He noticed Tadanashi nearby, who hastily dressed. She questioned him about what he had seen, to which he replied that it was unintentional. Tadanashi reminded him of a previous encounter, and they shared a moment of silence. She thanked him for saving her, and he reassured her it was no trouble. Tadanashi then revealed her true name, Sarashiki Katana, as she moved closer to him. They embraced and fell asleep in each other's arms. Years later, Izuku had graduated from IS Academy and became a qualified pilot, dedicated to protecting others with his IS, 𝐼𝐻𝐵H. His friend and partner, Riku, piloted his own IS, 𝐾𝐞𝐭, a Generation 5 model created by Midoriya Industries. In a flashback, Izuku spoke with his counterpart, the Celestial Dragon, discussing the revival of Tamura from another world and the possibility of granting him an IS. They also discussed the need for 𝐼𝐻𝐵H to eliminate 𝐿 from their world. Meanwhile, Izumi had passed away during their second year at UA due to One for All, marking the end of the conflict between All for One and One for All. The remaining members of Class 1A who survived graduated and became heroes, though they did not gain widespread recognition. Mineta met his end trying to pursue a Yakuza's daughter, while Kyoka suffered a loss of half her quirk. Momo faced disownment from her family after Izuku exposed their misdeeds. 𝐿 was found dead under mysterious circumstances, with evidence suggesting foul play. After capturing the Phantom Task, Izuku adopted Midoriya as his sister, as she had sought revenge against the Orimura family. Following 2 years of house arrest, she became Midoriya. Upon returning home, Izuku and Riku were greeted by their wives, Charlotte, Laura, Rin, Melissa, Kanzashi, and Tadanashi. After their marriages, the wives retired from piloting IS units, passing them on to their children, while Melissa took her father's place as a scientist. They were all expecting children. Ichika found happiness with Hookie, Cecilia, and Ran Gotinda, the younger sister of Dan Gotinda. Tenko, also known as Riku's wife, shared a similar past with Midoriya, leading to their connection. As they gathered for a family dinner, Hisashi watched from heaven, filled with pride for his son. Meanwhile, in Tartarus, Toshinori was held captive, forced to witness the suffering of Inko at the hands of other inmates.